The world of Naruto through the eyes of the Sharingan. Hey, fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction, so don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 51 The Box of Bliss. Wood release, wood splinter technique. Obito's voice, as flat and lifeless as withered wood, rang out. Countless sharp branches suddenly sprouted rapidly from his right half, composed of white zetsu, piercing through the numerous grass ninja around him. Wood release? You bastard, the grass ninja guarding the Box of Bliss never dreamed they would die from the legendary wood release. Obito slowly walked across the path paved with blood and corpses, standing before a huge square box. The box was carved with 4 faces: joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness, emitting a mysterious and evil aura of chakra. The Box of Bliss, according to legend in Grass Ninja Village, was used by someone from the land of grass hundreds of years ago to almost rule the world. However, Obito wasn't satisfied with this ninja tool. He frowned and looked at the black and white zetsu figures visible on the roof beam, saying, "Such a big box, how strong can the demon sealed inside be? Zetsu, are you sure the demon inside can compare to a tailed beast? The demon inside is called Satorit, and in some ways, it's even more difficult to deal with than a tailed beast." Black Zetsu lowered his voice, mimicking Madara's tone, saying, "According to clan records, hundreds of years ago, someone controlled this demon to wreak havoc on the ninja world. In the end, it was the combined efforts of then Uchiha and Senju clan leaders, paying a great price, that sealed the demon back into the Box of Elysium. The Uchiha clan leader at the time had awakened the Mangekyō Sharingan, and the Senju clan leader, who could rival him, was no less powerful. The demon in this box is probably worth 2 Mangekyō Sharingan Uchiha." Obito nodded, his eyes narrowing slightly. "With 2.5 Mangekyō Sharingan and 1 Seven Tails, I have the advantage over Gen Uchiha's Mangekyō Sharingan and a bunch of lousy bastards from Konoha. The Box of Bliss needs to absorb a massive amount of chakra to open, and the Seven Tails can do that." Black Zetsu dutifully played Obito's support role, filling in the gaps. "You can release enlightenment first, and then bring the Seven Tails into the battlefield after its chakra recovers. Oh, and be careful of Uchiha Gen using his Mangekyō Sharingan to try and seize control of the Seven Tails from you." Obito's blood-red Mangekyō Sharingan began to spin, his tone full of confidence. "I left 3 summoning seals and multiple control methods on the Seven Tails. This time, even if Uchiha Gen can surpass me in eye power, he won't be able to control the Seven Tails. Let's go, let's give Uchiha Gen, for the Uchiha, for Konoha a grand funeral, just like the Nine Tails rampage a year ago." "But Obito, weren't you seriously injured by the 4th Hokage a year ago?" White Zetsu said playfully. "I remember you even pooped out." Ever since then, Toby has always wanted to know what pooping feels like. Enough. Obito's body gradually faded and disappeared into the air, leaving behind only a somewhat exasperated sentence. "The Jinchuriki and the 4th Hokage died that night. My strategic objective has been achieved. This time, I will succeed again. I hope this time it will succeed." Black Zetsu summoned multiple white Zetsu clones to move the Box of Bliss away, sighed helplessly, and merged into the shadows. Uchiha, before the Rinnegan was born, were Black Zetsu's favorites, wishing they would all be twins, each pair of brothers awakening the Mangekyō Sharingan. But now Black Zetsu would rather the Uchiha clan be wiped out. One Uchiha Genji was already keeping Obito busy. If 2 more came, the Eye of the Moon plan would probably be ruined, right? Windstone Pavilion is one of the top Wind Country specialties in Konoha. On the walls painted with cherry blossoms, lotus flowers, chrysanthemums, and plum blossoms, there are lanterns of 4 colors representing spring, summer, autumn, and winter, respectively. Behind a layer of fine gauze, a beautiful man is performing a female impersonation act. The scenery was elegant, the decor was elegant, even the food plating was elegant. It was just the diners who lacked refinement. The grilled scorpion meat here isn't authentic at all. How dare they claim to be the best Sans village cuisine in Konoha? Sitting opposite Uchiha Gen, Yakira devoured her food, constantly criticizing the dish's inauthenticity and the meat's off taste. As she ate, tears welled in her eyes, her expression revealing undisguised melancholy and sorrow. The land of wind, Sunagakure, the place that gave her birth and nurtured her, she could never return. I've already met with the third Hokage. He generally approves of the establishment of the Scorching Village, but the specific conditions he said are very harsh, something a newly established ninja village like Scorching Village simply cannot accept. Yakira suppressed her sorrow. Now she had to work hard for the Scorching Village she was building. Her gaze was fixed intently on Uchiha Gen's face, her expression extremely serious. She slowly spoke, Mr. Gen, I've come to ask for your help. You've established a Scorching Village in the land of whirlpools and gained Konoha's approval. You don't need my help. Uchiha Gen picked up his teacup, his fingertips tracing the delicate surface, neither drinking nor putting it down. Now you come to me saying, Mr. Gen, please help me get justice, but you show me no respect whatsoever. You won't even call me benefactor. Yakira showed no arrogance, bowing her head decisively to Uchiha General. I will never forget your life-saving grace. Yakira and the entire Scorching Village are willing to be Gen-kun's lackeys. She knew Uchiha Gen's power, and she knew even the fourth Mizukage was under the control of this head of Konoha's #1 clan. In her eyes, Uchiha Gen was probably the most powerful and influential person in the ninja world. Having such a backer for herself and the newly established Scorching Village was definitely a good deal. Not enough, Uchiha Gen shook his head. He and Yakira had a tiny bit of acquaintance, but Yakira still owed him a favor. He couldn't just keep giving back because of sunk costs, could he? That would be like being a sycophant. Business is business. A group of about 200 burning ninja, most of them were Chunin level, basically useless to Uchiha Gen and the Uchiha clan. Only Yakira's personal strength had some value. 2 secret techniques, 2 high-level Sunagakure secret techniques. After a brief moment of thought, Yakira gritted his teeth and revealed his trump card. I signed a contract with the Sunagakure leadership, prohibiting me from revealing a series of ninjutsu I learned from Sunagakure. But there are 2 techniques they don't know I learned, so they're not written in the contract. One of them is related to magnet release. Oh, Uchiha Gen became interested. The second, third, and fourth Kazakage of Sunagakure. Starting with the second Kazakage, were all magnet release ninjas, and the future 5th Kazakage, Gaara, was also a magnet release ninja. It could be said that magnet release was Sunagakure's cage succession qualification. A simple magnet release bloodline limit is insufficient to serve as the inheritance of a cage. The second Kazakage of Sunagakure, Shimon, developed magnet release from Fugaku. Based on the magnet release bloodline limit, he combined it with several advanced secret techniques and sealing techniques, allowing successive magnet release users to consistently reach the cage level. Uchiha Gen was already somewhat tempted, but still said, it's still not enough. What other bargaining chips does Ms. Yakira have? You don't want the Scorching Ninja to be suppressed by both Kurigakure and Konoha, do you? Yakira lowered her head even further, her slender neck and smooth, white back gradually turning red. After much hesitation, she said, then my only remaining bargaining chip is my own bloodline limit, rumble. The sudden sound of a building collapsing startled Uchiha General. He no longer cared about Yakira's conditions and turned to use a body flicker technique to rush out of the restaurant. Chapter 52 Enlightenment. As the sun set, only a sliver of light remained on the horizon, and night was about to fall. Yet, Konoha in June was bustling with activity, its streets and alleys teeming with tourists, a harmonious and joyful atmosphere filling the entire village. Obito stood on the Hokage Rock, gazing down at the peaceful and tranquil Konoha, just as he had once vowed to become Hokage. Nearly a year had passed since the Nine-Tails attack, and the village seemed to have forgotten the fear and screams of that night, which greatly displeased Obito. Let this village remember the fear of that night once more. A series of howls, like the roars of wild beasts, echoed from within the fully charged box of bliss, like the abyss of hell, stirring up human desires and emotions. Obito frowned and moved away from the box of bliss. The face embossed on one side of the box gradually twisted, becoming as ferocious as a wild beast. It opened its gaping maw, revealing a deep, dark space within the box. Streams of condensed dark chakra surged within, finally coalescing into a strange, monstrous shadow. So much delicious flesh and blood, so much joy and happiness. I'll fill them with terror, then swallow them whole. That will be delicious. The shadow slowly stepped out of the box of bliss, suddenly growing gigantic into a colossal monster with fangs, a gaping maw, and wings on its back. Boom! The monster stomped its foot, and the monkey-like rock statue beneath it suddenly cracked, shattering into pieces that fell to the ground. in the Hokage's office. The Uchiha have attacked. Hiruzen Sarutobi, who had been living and eating in the Hokage building since Fugaku's death, jumped up, covered the crystal ball on the table with a cloth, fastened his trousers, and saw the collapsing cage rock through the floor-to-ceiling window of his office. Earth release, earth flow wall. Without a second to think, Hiruzen Sarutobi's hands danced in after images, unleashing a high-level earth release technique in less than a second. A massive, flat earthen wall suddenly rose beneath the Hokage rock, catching the falling rocks and preventing them from hitting the village buildings. The deafening alarm bells echoed throughout Konoha, and various colored defensive barriers lit up the clan territories of the major ninja clans. Since the Nine Tails attack, Konoha had been conducting enhanced evacuation drills. The Chunin and Jinan among the crowd spontaneously guided the villagers, and soon they were fleeing towards the shelters. One by one, ninjas converged towards the Hokage building, spontaneously forming small teams based on clan, rank, and other factors, then larger teams and battalions. This is the fear. It's amazing, amazing, woo. Its ugly face filled with excitement, flapped its wings, circled a few times in the sky, and flew directly down towards the crowd. In an instant, smoke and dust filled the sky, and more than 10 ninjas were torn apart, their bodies leaving no trace. Summoning jutsu, boom, from within the white smoke, the white-haired and bearded Hiruzen Sarutobi's eyes widened in fury. He swung the Ruai Jingubang, transformed from the Enma. In a wide arc the staff suddenly thickened and lengthened, unleashing a powerful gust of wind as it crashed down upon Sadara. Ruai Jingubang, gale boom, with a single blow, a crack tens of meters long was blasted into the ground. Hiruzen Sarutobi's strike was extremely sudden. But just as his staff was about to strike Sadara, Sadara nimbly leaped to the side and soared into the air, effortlessly avoiding the attack. Such a physique, so agile, and it can even fly. Hiruzen Sarutobi frowned and leaped into the air, unhesitatingly choosing a wide-range ninjutsu attack. Fire release, fire dragon flame bullet. Wind release, great net, the wind fueled the flames. While using wind release, Hiruzen Sarutobi had already thrown a giant shuriken, and then used the shuriken shadow clone technique. Thousands upon thousands of giant shuriken, propelled by the gale, surged forward with a massive fire dragon, heading straight for Sadara. The blazing sea of fire, like an enraged beast, soared into the sky, turning the entire sky above Konoha into a fiery cloud. Standing on a rooftop, Hiruzen Sarutobi tossed aside his white Hokage robe, revealing his red ninja uniform and purple silk sash beneath. Troublesome. His combined ninjutsu had finally yielded some results. The wide-range ninjutsu left the monster with no way to dodge, forcing it to traverse the sea of fire for a moment before escaping. But the route it chose was almost entirely through the weakest point in the fire. Neither the wind release nor the shuriken hit it, leaving it virtually unharmed. How could it see through all the weaknesses in his ninjutsu? Even the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan couldn't do that. Hiruzen Sarutobi was somewhat puzzled. Soaring through the air, Sadara gave him no time to think. With a sudden flap of his wings, he covered hundreds of meters in an instant, tearing a squad of ninja who came to provide support into a bloody pulp with his sharp claws, before pouncing on the next squad. Hiruzen Sarutobi wanted to reinforce, but every time he rushed in front of Sadara, Sadara would quickly distance himself and pounce on other ninjas. He wasn't afraid of Sadara's attacks, but he couldn't catch up with him and could only watch helplessly as Sadara slaughtered dozens of people. Jonin and below, do not approach. Anbu, prepare large-scale sealing techniques, Hiruzen Sarutobi shouted to the arriving ninjas while entangled with Sadara. Lightning release, 16 pillars binding technique. Secret technique, shadow summoning technique. 8 trigrams, empty palm. 3 Jonin seized the opportunity to coordinate an attack. Sadara, flying in the air, seemed to sense this and suddenly flew upwards for dozens of meters. Then, a chakra ball similar to a tailed beast ball condensed between his claws and shot towards the ground. Rotation, boom. A loud explosion. While Sadara's chakra ball lacked the earth-shattering, all-destroying power of a tailed beast ball, its instantaneous explosion still created a crater tens of meters in diameter on the ground. Of the 3 Jonin, only the Hyuga ninja who had used the rotation technique was left with both arms severed and on the verge of death. The ashes of the other 2 were scattered throughout Konoha. It's Sadara, standing atop a tall building. Uchiha Gen frowned as he looked at the bizarre monster in the sky above the Hokage building. If he remembered correctly, this should be the main villain from a certain movie, even Naruto in Sage Mode and Killer Bee. the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki, had suffered defeats at the hands of this Sadara, why is he in Konoha? Uchiha Gen muttered to himself. What did you say, Yakura, who had just landed beside Uchiha Gen using the body flicker technique? Had beads of sweat on her forehead. Nothing. Your scorch release has become even more refined. You were already glowing red and smoking before you even made a move. Uchiha Gen fired a few special police department flares into the sky and casually remarked. Yakura's face flushed even redder and hotter. But Uchiha Gen was no longer concerned with that. After the signal flare went off, one by one, the Uchiha clansmen approached Uchiha General. You're an outsider, it's best not to show up in such a sensitive place. Hachika, take this Yakura-san back to the embassy. Yakumi, take squads 3, 5, and 6 back to the clan's aid. The rest of the squads will help evacuate the villagers. You Jonin, come with me. Uchiha Gen quickly assigned the tasks and then led 5 or 6 Jonin straight towards the Hokage building. Soon, Hiruzen Sarutobi on the battlefield saw Uchiha Gen arriving to provide reinforcements. Hiruzen Sarutobi suddenly perked up. He couldn't defeat him, but in just a few minutes, the village's ninja had lost over 100 men. The Uchiha clansmen he usually hated and schemed to deal with were now surprisingly agreeable. He decided to grant Uchiha a week, no, half a month, of immunity from being targeted. Gen, quickly use your amazing Sharingan to think of a solution. Chapter 53 We must trust the third generation. Clan Chief Minamoto is here. Konoha is at peace. Clan Chief Minamoto is here. The monster is doomed. Uchiha Genji leaped onto a treetop, watching Hiruzen Sarutobi leap and bound in the distance, a smile playing on his lips as he slowly formed hand seals. Clan Chief Minamoto, that monster's sensory abilities are incredibly strong, ninjutsu can't hit it at all. Hyuga Hisashi, while checking the injuries of his fellow Jonin, relayed information to Uchiha Genji. It can also launch chakra balls similar to tailed beast balls. Although not as powerful as the tailed beast balls, their power is still immense. This monster is too agile, we must restrict its movement to have any chance of winning. Uchiha's face was filled with righteous indignation as he landed on the ground, slamming his hands down. The sudden burst of powerful chakra caused even the entangled Hiruzen Sarutobi and Sadara to turn their heads. Third Hokage, I'm here to help you, a resounding shout echoed through the sky, deafeningly loud. Despite being a magical beast capable of sensing fear and malice, Sadara sensed no emotion from Uchiha Gen towards him. The next moment, scorching magma erupted from the earth's core, and flames spewing from the ground, guided by Uchiha Gen, shaped themselves until this hellish inferno transformed into a barrier. Uchiha Flame Formation, thanks to Tiger Skin Mask Silin Kwong for the generous sponsorship, this ultimate barrier technique, lost within the Uchiha clan after Madara's departure, has reappeared in the ninja world after decades. Thanks to Uchiha General Sadara was trapped within the barrier, losing his most troublesome abilities, flight and maneuverability. Beautiful barrier technique, Hyuga Hisashi exclaimed in admiration upon seeing Uchiha Gen trap Sadara with a single move, then added with some worry, but, the third Hokage is still inside, don't worry, Uchiha Gen easily maintained the barrier with one hand touching the ground. The difficulty of the fire formation lies mainly in using the Sharingan's observational abilities to guide the earth fire, it doesn't consume much of one's own chakra. Don't underestimate the village's Hokage. Uchiha Gen's face was filled with solemn reverence, yet a smile almost crept onto his lips. A mere restricted demonic beast, the third Hokage can easily handle it. Yes, he's the Hokage. The many Jonin immediately felt relieved, their minds relaxing. Now, it was difficult for them to cross the barrier to offer assistance, so they simply admired the third Hokage's heroic figure from behind it. Did Uchiha Gen help? If he did. Inside the barrier, a fire dragon flame bullet scorched Sadara's wings. Hiruzen Sarutobi had to admit that within the confined space of the barrier jutsu, Sadara was indeed much easier to deal with. After all, Sadara was a giant demonic creature over 30 meters tall. No matter how well he hid within the relatively small barrier, he was easily overwhelmed by Hiruzen Sarutobi's firepower. However, what I really wanted was for Uchiha Gen to come up and fight it with me, preferably with his Susanoo activated to blind it. Fuming with resentment, Hiruzen Sarutobi swung his adamantine staff more and more rapidly, temporarily suppressing Sadara. These tailed beasts and demons of the ninja world possessed far greater destructive power and lethality against ordinary ninjas than even cage-level powerhouses, but in a one-on-one fight, no top-tier ninja feared a tailed beast or demon other than the Nine Tails. After forcing Satoru back with another strike, Hiruzen Sarutobi realized that taijutsu wasn't very effective against him. He created 2 shadow clones, continuing his taijutsu attacks while his clones used ninjutsu. Compound ninjutsu, lightning water dragon bullet, compound ninjutsu, earth dragon flame stream. Under the barrage of high-level ninjutsu, Satoru's sharp black feathers were almost completely burned away, leaving him only able to let out heart-wrenching roars, using genjutsu-like shouts to delay Hiruzen Sarutobi's relentless attacks. Great! A Jonin watching clenched his fist and shouted excitedly, and several others immediately followed suit. If it were 69-year-old Hiruzen Sarutobi, he might have been easily defeated. A ninja's peak years are between 30 and 50, and while 57-year-old Hiruzen Sarutobi had declined from his peak, his strength was still not to be underestimated. Uchiha Gen sighed inwardly. He had hoped that Satoru could discredit Hiruzen Sarutobi, but now it seemed unlikely. We can't let you finish off Satoru like this. At the top of the Hokage Rock, a figure suddenly appeared, looking down at the crowd below. Obito, with only one eye visible, formed several hand seals and then clasped his hands together, his eyes filled with a killing intent hotter than flames. Wood release, sea of trees descend, twisted wooden stakes rose rapidly from the ground, instantly creating a small forest, within which the branches and vines twisted and extended, entangling the watching Jonin. This technique, while not particularly powerful, astonished the Konoha ninja even more than the demon beast enlightenment. Wood release, the signature technique of the god of shinobi, the first Hokage. And now, a wood-released ninja had become an enemy of Konoha. So it's you, kid. Uchiha Gen didn't dodge the wood release's entanglement, letting it bind him. After truly experiencing the power of Obito's wood release, he forcefully broke free, pointing at Obito and shouting, "It's him." The wood release experimental subject who had his Mangekyō Sharingan transplanted into him, one Sharingan, orange mask, black clothes, nose wood release, it matches up. Everything Uchiha Gen had said before matched. Those who could become Jonin had some understanding of the village's dark side. The Jonin immediately conjured up various scenarios in their minds, a descendant of the Senju clan suffering inhumane experiments, ultimately seeking revenge against Konoha, second Hokage, what a fool, an older Jonin, who had experienced the second Hokage's reign, clearly understood Tobirama Senju's character. He sighed with a touch of sorrow, completely believing the Uchiha clan's earlier attempt to shift blame with the Tobirama corpse-stealing experiment theory. Of course, while he sympathized, his hand seals danced dazzlingly, unleashing a water dragon bullet after 44 seals, aimed directly at Obito. Obito scoffed, forming the hand seals for a summoning jutsu. A six-winged, long-tailed beetle-like beetle appeared out of thin air, blocking all the ninjutsu aimed at Obito with its blue carapace. He had achieved his goal. Uchiha Genji, attacked by wood release, had released his control over the fire array. Satoru was free again. After a shrill cry, the freed Satoru also took flight, unleashing streams of black cloud-like chakra in the air, continuously repairing his damaged body. After repairing itself, it locked onto the panting Hiruzen Sarutobi once more, stomped its foot, and roared as it charged towards him. Compared to the tailed beasts, which possessed near-human intelligence, the beastly nature of this demon, Satoru, was far more intense and vengeful. At this moment, it only wanted to devour Hiruzen Sarutobi's flesh and blood. Satoru, now free, was already difficult to deal with, and now the Seven Tails had arrived. The situation suddenly took a sharp turn for the worse. Go, Seven Tails. Go kill that Uchiha man. Obito, still wary of Gen Uchiha's control eye technique and another unknown eye technique, released the Seven Tails and gave it the order, then vanished again. He planned to wait until Gen Uchiha was severely weakened before emerging to finish him off. A perfect plan. Chapter 54 Orochimaru's Death. Roar. The controlled Seven Tails roared to the sky, unleashing a vast and malevolent chakra. Its six wings whipped up hurricanes, propelling it high into the heavens. In the moonlight, a black sphere rapidly condensed in its mouth. A tailed beast ball. The next moment, this tailed beast ball streaked across the sky at supersonic speed, flying towards Uchiha General Hyuga Hisashi watched the jet black, gleaming tailed beast ball hurtling towards him, a sense of despair rising within him. He racked his brains, but couldn't recall any move from the gentle fist techniques he had practiced for most of his life that could allow him to survive a tailed beast ball. Just as he closed his eyes, ready to accept his fate, he caught a glimpse of Uchiha Gen summoning a fan-shaped ninja tool. It's useless. I might as well recall my past. My past doesn't seem to have any valuable memories, it's just a tailed beast ball. Watch me push it back with my flame fan. Uchiha Gen leaped high, wielding his flame fan, watching the tailed beast ball hurtle towards him in a fiery red hue caused by distorted air. With a powerful swing, the flame fan acted as a shield, blocking the attack. No, not blocking, but absorbing. The tailed beast ball's earth-shatteringly compressed chakra flowed into the flame fan like water, completely absorbed. Mere sand. Hisashi, let me show you. Seeing Hyuga Hisashi's dumbfounded expression, Uchiha Gen flicked the flame fan's surface like dust, as if the devastating tailed beast ball was nothing more than insignificant specks of dust. I only drink milkshakes. Uchiha Gen lightly waved his fan, his voice distorted by the sudden gust of wind. A raging storm surged forth from the fan, its terrifying power instantly slamming into the Seven Tails, sending it flying unprepared. A deep red phantom projected from Uchiha Gen's body. Without hesitation, he activated Susanoo to its second stage, spreading his arms to grab the Seven Tails' wings as it fell from the sky. Illusion Sharingan. Uchiha Gen attempted to invade the Seven Tails' consciousness with genjutsu, but Obito had somehow interfered, and his attempts repeatedly failed. The Seven Tails struggled even more fiercely. While the second stage Susanoo was still smaller than a tailed beast, size never determines strength. Like a war god, Susanoo relentlessly struck the Seven Tails' head, the earth groaning in pain, an earthquake-like crack spreading from Uchiha Gen's feet, raising clouds of dust. After the Seven Tails was slammed into the ground, dizzy and unable to resist, Susanoo's arms gripped its green abdomen tightly. Then, Uchiha Gen leaped into the air with tremendous force. The colossal beast, tens of meters tall, was lifted high by Uchiha Gen, and Susanoo, with unparalleled strength, hurled the Seven Tails towards the northwest corner of the village. Third Hokage, we can't fight in the village. Ignoring the stunned ninjas, Uchiha Gen shouted at Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was being attacked by Goku, go to the forest in the northwest corner of the village. With that, Uchiha Gen leaped towards the place 10 kilometers away, where a cloud of dust billowed. Holding the Vajra staff, the third Hokage was half-crouched on the ground, his breathing erratic. After catching his breath, he slammed the staff into the ground. The staff, transformed from the Monkey King, grew longer in the wind, instantly propelling him hundreds of meters into the air. Leaping over 1,000 meters in a single bound, Hiruzen Sarutobi led go towards the northwest corner of the village. The cold wind from above cleared the third Hokage's mind. He vaguely remembered that the forest in the northwest corner seemed to be the root space. Danzo was a bit weak, but he was still useful as a support in high-level matches, at least not just a cheerleader like ordinary Jonin. With this thought in mind, Hiruzen Sarutobi slightly deviated from the intended path. In the root laboratory, Orochimaru frowned in annoyance, pouring a mist-dosed vial of medicine into the waste pool. A sudden, massive tremor interrupted his experiment. For such a huge tremor to occur in an underground laboratory, something significant must have happened above ground. He stepped out of the small door of the medicine room and saw his important experimental subject, Uchiha Inahime, sitting nervously at the lab table, while in another corner of the laboratory, a fierce-looking Danzo listened to a report from two root ninjas. What's wrong? Orochimaru asked in a hoarse, magnetic voice. What happened? Danzo snorted lightly, his face grim. Someone is controlling the Seven Tails and a demon to attack the village. That's not important. Orochimaru, how's the wood release transplant surgery going? Will this batch be successful? Orochimaru shook his head, turned on the tap beside the pool to wash his hands, and said somewhat nonchalantly, of these 60 test subjects, only 5 show signs of life, but the situation is not optimistic. It's unlikely anyone will survive. But I found the right research direction. As he said this, Orochimaru's golden vertical pupils greedily glanced at Uchiha Inato, adding, the first Hokage's cell's extraordinary vitality symbolizes its incredibly powerful yang release. To bind this power, we should use the opposing yin release. A thoughtful look appeared on Danzo's sour face. The mastermind behind the attack on the village, as reported by his subordinates, possessed both Sharingan and wood release powers. Orochimaru's research direction should be correct. That would be best. I'll collect the next batch of test subjects as soon as possible. At this moment, Inahime, who had been pretending to be invisible, tentatively asked in a low voice, Assistant Danzo, Lord Orochimaru, aren't we going to help the village after it's been attacked? Bang! Danzo slammed his hand on the table, stood up, glared at Inohime with a grim face, and said righteously, "I have more important things to do. What could be more important than protecting Konoha? Anyway, everything I do is for Konoha." After saying that, he walked towards the laboratory exit, seemingly having suddenly remembered something important. Inohime looked at Orochimaru innocently. Orochimaru didn't hide his disdain at all, licked his lips, and sneered, "Even the Hokage's assistant isn't in a hurry, so why should we be? Come on, Inohime, lie down. Let me see yours, rumble." After a deafening roar, the earth suddenly trembled, and cracks appeared on the specially made walls of the root. Then, another violent earthquake sound grew closer and closer. Two massive tremors struck repeatedly, finally stopping near the root laboratory. Then, with a deafening roar, Root's defensive barrier shattered, and a gigantic tail swept across, crushing everything on the base's surface to dust. Walls collapsed, and rubble rained down into the underground laboratory, sending up plumes of acrid dust. As the smoke cleared, sunlight, much needed, shone through a large hole in the wall, illuminating Orochimaru's pale face. He saw the Susanoo locked in hand-to-hand combat with the Seven Tails, his teacher entangled with a monster, and a vast horde of Konoha Jonin. Of course, they also saw Orochimaru, his blood-stained lab coat, and behind him rows of transparent biotanks containing people, some alive, some dead. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55 Monkeys Can't Make Choices. Orochimaru was secretly conducting human experiments. This wasn't just a rumor among Konoha's higher-ranking officials and Jonin, even lower-ranking ninjas had heard about it. After all, Orochimaru's appearance and character made him seem like a twisted scientist who would grin sinisterly while holding a scalpel in a lab. A ninja village, after all, is an extremely violent organization. Beneath the righteous facade of the will of fire, there is inevitably a dark and ugly side. Therefore, those standing in the light cannot amplify the sunlight to dispel the darkness and can only pretend to be completely unaware, unless you lift the lid and let everyone hear and see the filth hidden beneath the sun's reach. If it were merely human experiments, it would at most end Orochimaru's political career. But Uchiha Inohime lying on the experimental table, and isn't that so-and-so from so-and-so's family? I've seen him before, that's a descendant of the Senju. And that one, that's Gecko Height from the Gecko family, I heard he went missing before. I didn't expect, these were all Jonin, none of them were lacking in discernment. Just then, Shimura Danzo took his experiments very seriously, purchasing only the highest quality biotanks with extremely high transparency. So, people quickly recognized familiar faces among the test subjects. This completely changed the situation. The reason a ninja village is a ninja village, able to unite people with no blood relation or even strangers, is because they all belong to the collective of Konoha, and are comrades. Being caught red-handed attacking a fellow villager is an unforgivable crime, undermining the foundation of Konoha. The gazes of the crowd towards Orochimaru instantly shifted from disgust and condemnation to disbelief and hatred. Orochimaru, Hiruzen Sarutobi, witnessing the scene, was horrified. Distracted, he was slashed across the abdomen by Sadara. Shadow clone technique. Creating two clones with the help of the Anbu to hold off Sadara, Hiruzen Sarutobi, without even tending to his wound, landed silently before the Jonin. Now, it was his turn to make a choice. At the root base, with Orochimaru conducting experiments, even if he were the high-ranking Hokage, he could only save one at most, Shimura Danzo or Orochimaru. One would take the blame and become a pawn, while the other would receive various punishments to atone for his crimes. This was already the best possible outcome. On one side was his childhood friend and sworn brother, on the other was his beloved disciple whom he had raised. Whom to choose? The pain was unbearable. The 50-something-year-old ninja's eyes were filled with confusion, but he knew that as a qualified leader, he had to make a decision immediately. Both were as important to Hiruzen Sarutobi's family, but putting aside emotions, the 40-year-old Orochimaru was more valuable than the aged and frail Danzo. After eliminating emotional interference, Hiruzen Sarutobi let out a long breath and angrily rebuked him. Orochimaru, what kind of bastard things have you done under Danzo's command? Confess everything. Hiruzen Sarutobi glared at Orochimaru, Knowing that this disciple understood his meaning, shift all the blame to Danzo and absolve himself as much as possible. How? Master. Even now, you still don't understand. Looking at the heartbroken Hiruzen Sarutobi, Orochimaru's dark golden eyes flashed, and a disdainful, wicked smile crept onto his face. He didn't follow his master's lead and shift the blame. He had long planned to leave this village that bound him and those useless ties, but now it was happening a few months earlier than he had anticipated. He stared intently at the aging, somewhat hunched figure of this ninja hero for a few seconds, then abruptly formed hand seals and clapped his hands, shouting, summoning jutsu. A giant brown python emerged from the ground, swallowing Orochimaru and Inoji Uchiha whole, before burrowing back into the earth. Orochimaru had given his answer through his actions. He had run away. It was all Orochimaru's doing. Danzo, who had been hiding in the base, finally emerged, glaring at Hiruzen Sarutobi like a wronged woman, and began to shift the blame. He kidnapped those villagers. Root only provided him with some equipment and a laboratory. I didn't know he used the laboratory. Although Danzo was extremely dissatisfied with the third Hokage's earlier act of using him as toilet paper for Orochimaru, he could only try his best to shift the blame, hoping the third Hokage would protect him. Enough, the third Hokage shouted sharply, ordering, issue an S-rank warrant for Orochimaru, dead or alive. As for you, Hiruzen Sarutobi gave Danzo a look of exasperation, pressing his temples with both hands, and added, remove Danzo from all his posts and imprison him in Konoha prison. Pending investigation, that's it. Danzo was secretly pleased, his face still showing a wronged expression. He offered a few more explanations before reluctantly agreeing to cooperate with the investigation. Anyway, the people in Root only listened to him. Even in prison, he could still stir up trouble in Konoha and the ninja world. Clang. A shuriken flew diagonally towards Shimura Danzo, which he easily blocked with a kunai. However, the person who appeared in the forest startled everyone. Uchiha Gen. Everyone instinctively glanced into the distance. On a nearby hilltop, Susanoo, like a war god, was still entangled with the seven tails, but the figure protected by its ribs was nowhere to be seen. Susanoo, it can actually leave the body? Danzo, who had long coveted the Sharingan, didn't even know that this technique could leave the body. But in his shock, he immediately rebuked with righteous indignation, Uchiha Gen, are you rebelling? How dare you attack the Hokage's assistant? I didn't see any Hokage's assistant. One by one, the Uchiha Jonin instinctively gathered behind their clan leader, while Uchiha Gen smiled playfully, and finally, he brazenly raised an eyebrow at Sarutobi Hiruzen. All I saw was an unforgivable, vicious rogue ninja who used his fellow villagers for experiments. The northwest corner was his choice. The Root base was one he smashed with his seven tails. Originally, Uchiha Gen only wanted Danzo to suffer in silence. But who knew he would be so brazen as to place the laboratory directly in his own base? Uchiha Gen immediately realized this was an unprecedented opportunity to force the issue. It was time to eliminate the cage's forces and eliminate the traitors. Gen, the specific situation still needs investigation. Danzo, Sarutobi Hiruzen frowned, not expecting Uchiha Gen to launch such a brutal attack. The Root base and laboratory, Danzo was unaware of it, didn't participate? Is that possible? Uchiha Gen showed no respect to the third Hokage, directly drawing his sword horizontally. The smooth blade reflected his cold, murderous eyes. The Uchiha Jonin behind him excitedly activated their three-tomo Sharingan, some even placing their hands on their swords. The first Hokage said, if the village is harmed, I will never forgive my brothers, friends, or even my children. Third Hokage, don't let personal feelings interfere with your unwavering commitment to the will of fire. Uchiha Gen had suddenly launched an attack. The third Hokage lowered his gaze, glancing at the Jonin around him, and noticed that many clearly agreed with Uchiha Gen's words. Now, his headache was even worse. It was still a choice between two options. If he didn't declare Danzo a rogue ninja, the Uchiha would likely purge the cage's side. If he declared Danzo a rogue ninja, Konoha would lose another top-tier fighter, and he would lose an ally, making it even harder to suppress the Uchiha. Difficult. 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 This choice was truly beyond his ability. Chapter 56 Pot King and Snake Fly Away. Boom. Just as Hiruzen Sarutobi was in a dilemma, on a nearby mountaintop, Gen Uchiha's Susanoo pierced the seven tails forward with a powerful sword strike, killing it. Unable to free it from Obito's control, Gen Uchiha had no choice but to kill it. But this earth-shattering sword strike made Hirozen Sarutobi's heart skip a beat. He turned to look at the eastern side of the forest, where his shadow clone was still locked in a fierce struggle with Sadara. His gaze swept over the fading flames and form of the Susanoo in the distance, feeling the terrifying chakra fluctuations, and the third Hokage let out a deep breath. Failing to properly supervise Orochimaru is my responsibility as his teacher. For this, I am willing to resign as Hokage. The village should immediately begin the election of the fifth Hokage. The Uchiha clan needed appeasement, and Danzo couldn't be forced away. He could only sacrifice his own interests. Hearing this, Gen Uchiha scoffed. Elect the fifth Hokage? Make Jiraiya your puppet, or bring Tsunade back to rally support and suppress the Uchiha? I might as well let you serve a few more years, until I'm older and my reputation grows. The third Hokage is kind-hearted and considerate of old friendships. I admire him. But how can you be blamed for what Orochimaru and Danzo did? We all believe you are completely unaware. The blame lies solely with Danzo and Orochimaru. Uchiha Gen's voice was loud and clear, his words sharp as knives, forcing Hirozen Sarutobi to choose. Uchiha Gen coldly stared at Hirozen Sarutobi, the Uchiha behind him already drawing their swords. Normally, Hirozen Sarutobi could use his Hokage status to suppress Uchiha Gen's objections, but not today. As a reasonably competent politician, in his decades as Hokage, he clearly understood that the power of a superior actually stemmed from the support of their subordinates. With support, you are Hokage. Without support, you're just a monkey wearing a Hokage hat? The ninja village system dictates that every Jonin is essentially a small military leader, and only those who gain the approval of the majority of Jonin are truly Kage. Previously, the Uchiha clan could be targeted and suppressed because most of Konoha's ninja clans also rejected and isolated them. They represented public opinion, but at least today, at least in the matter of Danzo, Uchiha Gen's words represented the views of all ninja clans and commoner Jonin. No one wanted themselves or their loved ones to be sent to the experimental table by the village's higher-ups. Hey 8. Hokage-sama, what's going on? A shrill cry suddenly rang out. It was the head of the Moonlight clan, rushing towards Moonlight Hey 8 in the bio-tank, tears streaming down his face. The Moonlight clan had long since declined, and now didn't even have a Jonin. However, they still had connections among the Jonin, and someone had secretly informed them when Hey 8 was discovered. The Moonlight clan head's cries became the last straw that broke Hirozen Sarutobi's back. Now, the village was beset by internal and external troubles, and with Gen's Mangekyō Sharingan, the Uchiha clan was even more untouchable. The only option was to deal with Danzo. He sighed, his gaze fixed on Danzo, a trace of guilt flashing in his eyes. Sarutobi, you? Danzo was horrified. Ruai Jingu Bang, Gale. Hirozen Sarutobi didn't speak, but his actions spoke volumes. He swung his staff, suddenly creating a gust of wind, and attacked Danzo. However, this gust was all show and no substance. After the dust and stones flew, Danzo and several root ninjas had vanished without a trace. Danzo has defected. Listed as an S-rank rogue ninja. The entire 3rd Anbu squadron is to pursue and kill him. With a command from Hirozen Sarutobi, several Anbu members chased after Danzo's escape route. Afterward, he selected about 20 Jonin, dividing them into 2 teams, each responsible for pursuing Orochimaru and Danzo. Having done all this, he calmly stared at Uchiha Gen, anger and shame surging uncontrollably within him like vines. But, a true ninja hero is indeed a ninja hero. After a long silence, the 3rd Hokage loosened his clenched fist, forcing an awkward smile onto his pale face. Clan chief, demons are rampant. How about you help me subdue them first, then pursue the rogue ninja, alright? Shisui, Yakumi, hunting down rogue ninja is the duty of every Konoha ninja, and the Uchiha are no exception. You two join the pursuit. Uchiha Gen gave Shisui a look, conveying some information using genjutsu, then turned his gaze, sweeping over the Jonin. For a moment, no one dared to meet his eyes. Giving orders beyond the Hokage's authority was undoubtedly an act of usurpation, but Hirozen Sarutobi's expression only darkened further. He did not object to Uchiha Gen's command. A true ninja hero. Truly patient, following the livid 3rd Hokage towards Sadara's direction, Uchiha Gen felt an immense sense of pleasure and relief, even experiencing a tingling, electric-like sensation from the back of his neck to the inside of his head. In a forest outside the village, a giant python emerged from the ground and spat out 2 sticky figures. Lord Orochimaru, what do we do now? Uchiha Inahime, disgusted, wiped the slime off his body, completely bewildered. How could the lab have been exposed so suddenly? Orochimaru, the village's leader and Hokage's disciple, had become a rogue ninja? What should I do? Inaheim, you can take a gamble and go straight back to the village. Maybe they'll think you're a victim of their experiments. But if they find out you volunteered, you'll be walking into a trap. Orochimaru chuckled eerily, his eyes narrowing slightly. He formed hand seals and merged them into the earth, looking at the hesitant Inaheim. If you escape Konoha, you can go to the former side of the Sky Ninja in the south of the Land of Sky. It's still a contact point between Shin'en and the remnants of the Sky Ninja. I'll leave my contact information there later. With that, Orochimaru disappeared underground. But instead of fleeing, he turned and avoided the pursuing ninjas, heading towards Konoha. Alone, Inaheim's expression shifted between anger and uncertainty. After pacing for a moment, he gritted his teeth and fled in a direction far from Konoha. However, less than half an hour later, he stopped in a tree, drew his sword, and focused on what was behind him. A series of afterimages flashed through the forest, followed by a whooshing sound, and Shisu's crimson Sharingan silently stared at Inaheim. Shisu, your body flicker technique is truly excellent, far superior to mine, Inaheim said with a condescending smile. When I was 13, I was far inferior to you, and even now, it would be difficult to surpass you. Inaheim, did you really willingly collude with Orochimaru? Shisu stared at Inaheim with a serious expression, raising a small katana. Then I'll have no choice but to break your legs and take you back, is that so? Inaheim calmly met Shisu's gaze, suddenly forming several strange hand seals. It would be difficult for me to quickly surpass you with my strength alone, so, Shisu, don't blame me for cheating. Sizzle, a dark red chakra, carrying an ominous aura, surged forth from Inaisu's body. This malevolent chakra gradually materialized, transforming into a thin veil of chakra that enveloped Inaisu's body. Under the protection of the Zero Tails chakra provided by the Zero Tails egg he had cultivated, the three tomo in Inaisu's eyes deepened in color, and his ocular power noticeably increased. The Zero Tails chakra's enhancement made him stronger than ever before, and this increased ocular power captivated him. A wild smile began to spread across his face. Never before has there been such a wonderful start. Inaisu covered his face with one hand, arrogantly twirling his longsword in a beautiful flourish, pointing it at the solemn-faced Shisu. Let me bestow upon you a defeat you will never forget. Ahaha. Chapter 57 Phantom Instantaneous Movement Technique. A Uchiha might show off, make boastful remarks, and pull off countless stunts in their lifetime, but people will never remember their swagger during their countless successes. They'll only remember their pathetic state when they're humiliated. An anonymous Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Inaheim felt he had reached the pinnacle of his life. With a tailed beast cloak and enhanced eye power, his five senses, every pore on his body, were celebrating his immense strength. He was now the number one Uchiha. Well, with Minamoto and Fugaku's Mangekyō Sharingan, he'd be the 2.5th strongest Uchiha. Whoosh, Uchiha style, great fire sword. A blazing light flashed on the blade. With the power of the Zero Tails chakra, Inaheim covered dozens of meters in an instant, far exceeding his limits, and slashed at Shisu. The next instant, he saw Shisu's handsome face smile, inches away. The Shisu before him instantly became a blur, Inaheim's blade slicing through the air without obstruction, only igniting the trees beneath him. Inaheim was stunned, suddenly realizing that within a few dozen meters of him, one Shisu after another had appeared out of thin air. Shadow clones? No, Inaheim shook his head. With a perception of his Sharingan, he could see that these Shisu were not shadow clones, but more like illusions. These illusions instantly traversed a distance of several dozen meters, attacking Inaheim from all directions. Just illusions. Ignoring these realistic illusions, Inaheim's deep, dark red eyes scanned back and forth, trying to find the true form of Shisu. The true form is the one about to strike me from behind. Inaheim suddenly turned around, blocking with his sword, but the true form that he had clearly identified turned into an illusion the instant he turned. Snap! The illusion on his right transformed into the true form of Shisu, kicking the unsuspecting Inaheim in the chest. Inaheim felt a sharp pain in his chest and was sent flying towards another Shisu illusion. Before he even landed, he was kicked again. Then, crack, crack crack, crack crack crack, intense pain shot through his body. Inaheim saw the chakra cloak protecting him shatter into fragments under Shisu's relentless attacks. Finally, with a deafening explosion, 6 or 7 Shisu struck Inaheim almost simultaneously. Boom! Inaheim flew backward, crashing through several trees before vomiting blood. He braced himself on the ground, panting heavily. Protected by the chakra cloak, his injuries weren't serious. But being kicked around like a ball wasn't very damaging, but extremely humiliating. Why? Why? My powerful eye power is inferior to a 13-year-old child in terms of perception? Impossible, absolutely impossible. Anaheim's face was contorted, his eyes bloodshot, the whites of his eyes bloodshot, and a sharp glint in them. Magical Sharingan. Uchiha Inuyasha engaged Shisui in eye contact, intending to defeat him in a contest of eye power. Then, he heard Shisui's calm and slow voice, "It's over." For some reason, Inuyasha suddenly felt an intense sense of crisis. He frowned, but still resolutely activated his genjutsu. He then saw the three Tomo and Shisui's eyes spinning continuously, gradually transforming into the shape of shuriken. Mangekyō Sharingan? Inuyasha's eyes widened suddenly, his face contorting, and then his body felt as if his bones had been removed, collapsing limply to the ground. His consciousness began to dissipate. Before completely losing consciousness, even as Uchiha with extreme confidence and stubbornness, he couldn't help but waver. Am I really not a genius? Or am I just a supporting character in the story of Genji and Shisui? In the forest. Three-way seal. After a fierce battle, Hiruzen Sarutobi and two shadow clones stood in three directions, opening a green, transparent pyramid barrier, forming a solid barrier that trapped Satoru within it. At the same time, Uchiha Gen also unleashed his eye technique. Amaterasu, a black flame ignited within the barrier, rapidly spreading and filling the entire interior in the blink of an eye, leaving Satoru with no way to escape. Although Amaterasu is known as the Fire of Mercy, it performed poorly against various powerful opponents, seemingly unworthy of the title of strongest fire release. But when combined with a barrier technique that restricts the enemy's movement, its effect was immediate. Under the scorching black flame, wisps of smoke rose from Satoru's body as he howled in pain, his life hanging by a thread. So his other eye technique is Amaterasu, haha. Obito, this eye technique poses no threat to you. On a small hill in the distance, Zetsu, resembling a Venus flytrap, and Obito, wearing a mask, were watching the battle. Seeing Satoru's imminent defeat, Obito merely watched coldly, hesitating to intervene. Obito, Satoru is about to be killed, aren't you going to intervene? White Zetsu looked at Satoru, who was now rolling on the ground within the barrier, and asked with some doubt. Even if Satoru is killed, he can be resurrected as long as enough chakra is injected into the box of bliss. Let's wait until Uchiha Gen is alone. Uchiha Obito felt uneasy, or rather, he was somewhat afraid of Uchiha Gen and hoped to make his move when he was most confident. That makes sense. Black Zetsu glanced at Obito without showing any emotion, inwardly cursing him as a coward, and echoed him, then suddenly provoked him. We really need to wait until he relaxes his guard to have a chance. After all, Susanoo's defensive power is so excellent. It's a pity Obito, you don't have Susanoo. Obito's one eye coldly swept over Black Zetsu, but he didn't boast as usual. Like even with just one Mangekyō Sharingan, I am invincible in the ninja world. The pressure from Uchiha Gen was indeed quite great. Seeing Obito's attitude soften, Black Zetsu was overjoyed and immediately controlled White Zetsu to create a spore clone, which sneaked towards a nearby Anbu patrol team. Who goes there? A short, white-haired Anbu member suddenly drew his sword, the short blade flashing in the air before striking a tree. The White Zetsu, deliberately revealing the presence, cried out in surprise and disappeared underground, leaving behind some tracks. The white-haired Anbu member gave several tactical hand signals to his comrades, then activated a signal flare and followed the trail left by the White Zetsu. This signal means enemy detection. Uchiha Gen asked the third Hokage, who was preparing sealing techniques to seal Satoru, as he watched the signal flare rise in the distance. Yes, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was using various sealing techniques to restrain the dying Satoru, narrowed his eyes. That's the Fox Squad, led by Kakashi. Kakashi? I'll go see if they've found the experimental subject's location, Uchiha Gen muttered to himself, then left the third Hokage behind, his face grim, and used his body flicker technique to rush towards the direction of the signal flare. Kakashi's Kamui eyes had always been a threat to him. However, because Kakashi was in the Anbu, where secrecy was extremely high, Uchiha Gen hadn't found an opportunity to retrieve the eye. Is Obito going to take back his eye? Uchiha Gen frowned, quickening his pace. Obito with dual Kamui was already a formidable opponent in his eyes, so I'd rather destroy it than let Obito succeed. Chapter 58 Eye Destruction. In the forest, Kakashi lay prone in a puddle beside a large tree, using his concealment technique to its fullest extent, his scarlet left eye observing two strange figures on the hillside not far away. One was a half-black, half-white Venus flytrap-like creature, the other a one-eyed masked man in black robes. Was that black-robed man the escaped experimental subject from the village, the mastermind behind the Nine-Tails Knight? The image of the blonde man's gentle, bright smile flashed through Kakashi's mind, and he almost couldn't suppress his killing intent. The most important thing now is to track their movements. Kakashi desperately suppressed his emotions, calmly shrinking further into the puddle. Something's wrong. Just then, Kakashi suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. As a seasoned veteran in his teens, he always trusted his intuition. He jumped up abruptly, revealing his presence. Almost simultaneously, dense vines sprouted from the ground, piercing the chests of the two Enbu ninjas lurking around him, while he alone escaped the attack. Just a few little mice. Black Zetsu on the hillside turned his head, his expression calm as he said in a surprised tone, "It's him." Obito turned back, his cold gaze sweeping over Kakashi before looking at Black Zetsu beside him, his eyes filled with disgust and disdain. "Zetsu, you think you're so smart? You think you can fool me?" "I'm just offering an opportunity. Whether you take it or not is up to you." Black Zetsu seemed a little embarrassed as he smiled and slowly sank into the ground. After merging into the earth, Black Zetsu glanced at Obito with interest one last time before disappearing from the hillside. But its disappearance made Kakashi think that the enemy was about to escape. In order to delay the two enemies, he advanced instead of retreating, using his lightning release to enhance his cells and charging straight at Obito. Whoosh! The kunai in Kakashi's hand sliced through Obito's body, but only created a whistling sound. Obito's eyes glowed red, and he turned around and kicked Kakashi in the stomach, knocking him to the ground. Kakashi sprang to his feet with a grunt, his face showing surprise and doubt. He quickly formed hand seals, chanting, "Earth release, earth flow wall." Instantly, a solid wall, 5 or 6 meters high and over 10 meters long, rose from the ground, blocking the masked man's pursuit and allowing Kakashi to escape Obito's sight. Moments later, Obito, in a blur, passed through the doghead sculpture of the earth flow wall, scanning his surroundings but finding Kakashi nowhere to be seen. "Where did he go?" Obito's voice held a hint of amusement as he slammed his fist into his foot. Boom! The ground suddenly cracked open, and Kakashi, hidden underground, thrust a kunai at Obito, only to be struck squarely in the face by the punch. "Kakashi, we're on different levels now." A slight smile played on Obito's lips beneath his mask as he reached out with his other hand, grabbing at Kakashi's hair. Poof! A puff of white smoke rose, leaving only a piece of substitute wood on the ground. Several kunai suddenly flew from behind Obito. Useless, Obito's smile remained unchanged. He quickly switched to his intangible state to dodge the kunai, pulled out an iron chain from his waist, and with a gentle flick, bound the attacking Kakashi. Zzz. The bound Kakashi revealed a slight smile, his body flashing with dazzling lightning. He transformed into a powerful current, paralyzing Obito along the chain. Boom! The substitute tree on the ground once again emitted smoke, transforming back into Kakashi's appearance, his hands forming the 3 hand seals. Ugly rabbit monkey sizzle. A sharp, piercing bird cry rang out. Accompanied by the screech of the 1,000 birds, Kakashi seemed to transform into lightning, rushing towards Obito with incredible speed, thrusting the lightning-streaked 1,000 birds into Obito's chest. At the instant the piercing strike landed on Obito's chest, with a perception of his 3-tomo Sharingan, he seemed to see the enemy's only exposed pupil contract slightly, revealing a strange, indescribable expression. Without much thought, Kakashi accelerated his sprint. However, Kakashi underestimated Obito's resistance to ninjutsu. Having received Hashirama's cells and awakened the Mangekyō Sharingan, Obito possessed extremely high resistance to ninjutsu. The lightning clone's paralysis wouldn't control him for long. Obito's eyes were somewhat dazed. He stared indifferently at Kakashi's murderous gaze, his memory suddenly returning to that evening many years ago. Rin, it must have hurt so much back then, right? I feel Rin's pain now. Kakashi, you're a piece of trash. Kakashi, looking astonished, passed through Obito's chest, staggering as he plunged one hand into the large tree behind Obito. It's over, Obito muttered, pulling a kunai from his ninja tool pouch and stabbing it at Kakashi, who was panting heavily after using Chidori. Just as the gleaming kunai was about to touch Kakashi's throat, He slightly moved his hand, releasing the kunai and raising his hand to grab Kakashi's left Sharingan. Kakashi broke his promise to himself, failing to protect Rin. To kill him like this, sending him to the other side where Rin resides, is far too lenient. Yes, that's it, it's not that I couldn't bring myself to do it. Just as Obito's finger was about to press against Kakashi's eye socket, black flames appeared out of thin air, transforming into a fire tornado under Kagutsuchi's control, protecting Kakashi in the eye of the storm. The deep voice of Uchiha Gen, uttering the word Amaterasu, only reached Obito's ears after Obito instinctively blurred into hazy vision. That eye is a relic of my clan, containing his belief in protecting his comrades and his dream of becoming Hokage. It cannot fall into the hands of a filthy villain like you. Black flames suddenly scattered, and Uchiha Gen used a body flicker technique to block Kakashi's path. Turning back to the still shaken Kakashi, he said, Kakashi, remember, what Obito left you wasn't a Sharingan, but his will. As the head of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Gen was determined to protect the belief and will that Obito had conveyed to Kakashi. Therefore, to prevent the evil masked man from stealing Obito's relic, Uchiha Gen swiftly plucked out Kakashi's Sharingan before his astonished eyes. HMPH, Kakashi groaned, clutching his bleeding eye socket and looking at Uchiha Gen with confusion. Not far away, Obito, who was still in a holographic state, was also startled, his body trembling slightly. Kakashi, the opponent is very strong. I've exhausted my chakra through several battles, and I'm afraid I can't stop him from taking your eye. But Obito's eye must not be defiled. Uchiha Gen looked at the precious Kamui eye in his hand, his face a complex mix of nostalgia, regret, and grief. He sighed. Obito, no matter what, your will lives on with us. With that, he crushed the eye in his hand into pulp without a second thought. The first act came from Kakashi, still somewhat bewildered in processing Uchiha Gen's words, while the second came from Obito, consumed by grief and rage. Obito clenched his teeth, veins bulging, his chest heaving rapidly. His single eye stared intently at Uchiha Gen's palm, his gaze empty and desperate, like an endless darkness devoid of any color. Yes, yes, yes. That's the look, that's the look. It's amazing, amazing. Uchiha Gen stared at Obito, his teeth clenched and veins bulging, but he was desperately suppressing the urge to burst into laughter. As much pain and despair Obito was experiencing, Uchiha Gen was experiencing the same joy and excitement. That tingling sensation returned. It was as if a hand was gently stroking Uchiha Gen's head and neck, a strange, tingling sensation filling his brain and spine, making him tremble uncontrollably. He had never experienced anything so wonderful. At that moment, a small window popped up on his prosthetic eye, ocular power detected. Imprint, we can guess the protagonist's ocular technique now, the answer will be revealed tomorrow. Chapter 59 A Kaleidoscope of Pleasure. Discovered Sharingan Power. Imprint, Uchiha Gen almost instinctively prepared to imprint the super-powerful Sharingan technique, Kamui, but the screen of his prosthetic eye flickered, and a small box popped up, discovered alien Sharingan power. Imprint, 2 boxes? Alien Sharingan power should represent Kamui, after all, he still had remnants of Obito's eye. The other one meant his own Sharingan power had reached a Mangekyō Sharingan level? Uchiha Gen snapped back to reality, somewhat dazed. When an Uchiha receives sufficient emotional stimulation, their brain generates a special chakra, thus prompting the evolution of the Sharingan. This was the view of Senju Tobirama, who had spent his life researching how to deal with Uchiha, and it also aligned with the mainstream Uchiha view. But Senju Tobirama was ultimately not an Uchiha. The overall scientific research level of the early Sengoku period ninja village he lived in, and his understanding of the human body and cells, limited his research. Chakra is a product of the fusion of spiritual energy and physical energy in a 1-to-1 ratio, a point known even to Ninja Academy students. The Sharingan's power is a special kind of chakra, it's extracted from cells in the Uchiha's brain. Matter is paramount. In Uchiha Gen's research, the Sharingan's evolution is actually, under intense emotional stimulation, some brain cells undergo specialization and mutation, or, to put it bluntly, pathology. These specialized cells can extract higher quality power. This high quality power, when injected into the eyes, triggers the Sharingan's evolution. And today, in Uchiha research, Uchiha Gen has made a groundbreaking discovery that will be recorded in the history of the Hoshino clan. It turns out that the extreme emotions that stimulate an Uchiha to awaken a Mangekyō Sharingan don't necessarily have to be deep-seated hatred or pain, Uchiha can also awaken their eyes with pleasure. Imprint a different source of power, Kamui couldn't be wasted. While the flesh in his hand was still warm, Uchiha Gen quickly reserved the last imprinting slot of his prosthetic eye for Kamui. How dare you? How dare you do this, Obito, his mind blank from the shock of the scene before him, roared furiously, his eyes blazing with uncontrollable rage, his teeth grinding together. He knew that if he could simply retrieve his three-tomo left eye, the one that matched his soul and bloodline, he could use his powerful yin release to upgrade it to the Mangekyō Sharingan, even activating Susanoo. But now, everything was destroyed. I'm in hell, Obito muttered, increasingly convinced that this distorted and flawed world had no meaning whatsoever. Uchiha Gen, he went berserk, no longer fearing Uchiha Gen, his only thought being to kill the bastard who had destroyed his eye. He charged straight at Uchiha General Clang. The iron chain in Obito's hand clashed with Uchiha Gen's longsword. The next moment, without hesitation, he abandoned the weapon passed down from Uchiha Madara and reached for Uchiha Gen's forearm. He touched it. Kamui. Obito grabbed Uchiha Gen's arm and immediately activated Kamui. Seeing the Kamui eye technique newly imprinted in his prosthetic eye, Uchiha Gen was momentarily speechless, offering no resistance. A twisted vortex easily sucked him in. Obito, carrying Uchiha Gen, disappeared into the vortex and entered the Kamui dimension. In a ravaged forest, only Kakashi remained. Clutching half his face, he stared wide-eyed, somewhat dazed. Shouldn't I be the one most upset about Obito's destroyed eye? Why is this enemy reacting so strongly? Inside the Kamui dimension, in a vortex that appeared out of nowhere, Uchiha Gen kicked Obito away. He had no intention of engaging Obito now. Uchiha Gen could clearly feel the yin-release chakra that had been generated in his brain surging like a tide, constantly trying to enter his eyes through his chakra channels. However, Uchiha Gen only had a pair of prosthetic eyes in his eye sockets, which didn't match his own ocular power. The surging ocular power could only be blocked in the chakra meridians of his eyes. Who knew if this ocular power would be depleted if it wasn't released for a long time? What if it was too late to get his own eyes back and he couldn't awaken a Mangekyō Sharingan? Seeing the crimson light flashing in Obito's eyes, and seeing him about to charge forward recklessly again, Uchiha Gen suddenly burst into laughter. Ahohohoho. This laughter, which had been suppressed for too long, was released with unparalleled ease. Obito instinctively stopped his charge. No Uchiha would interrupt another Uchiha's maniacal laughter. It was the most basic etiquette among Uchiha. Even if he wanted to kill Uchiha Gen, he wouldn't mind letting him laugh for another 20, 30, or even a minute. Obito was getting impatient and tightened his grip on the kunai in his hand. Swish! Uchiha Gen stopped laughing, and a vortex appeared out of thin air behind him, a sign that Obito was all too familiar with when Kamui was activated. Obito looked at Uchiha Gen in disbelief, noticing the incredibly familiar shape of the Mangekyō Sharingan in his eye socket. It wasn't the shape Uchiha Gen had shown before, it was his own three-windmill crescent pattern. Uchiha Gen vanished without a trace. Only Obito remained standing in the Kamui dimension, veins bulging in his neck, eyes bloodshot, unable to accept what had happened. Kakashi, support arrived only after the battle was over. Hiruzen Sarutobi, his face covered in fine sweat, panting heavily as he led the Anbu into the forest, only to find Kakashi, who had lost his Sharingan, tending to his eye injury. Kakashi, where's the enemy? Where's Uchiha Gen? The enemy was a black-clad man with a Mangekyō Sharingan and would release bloodline limit. He used a strange space-time ninjutsu and disappeared with the Minamoto clan chief. I see. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression relaxed slightly, but while remaining vigilant, he asked with some concern, what about your Sharingan? Kakashi was silent for a moment. He wasn't stupid, he knew about the underhanded dealings between the Uchiha and their higher-ups. As a fourth Hokage disciple, he was naturally a direct descendant of the Hokage, but the Uchiha were, after all, Obito's clan. Remembering Gen's earlier praise of Obito's will and his words of persuasion, Kakashi's anger at the destruction of his Sharingan immediately subsided. I can't let my actions further deepen the conflict between the Uchiha and the village. For the sake of the bigger picture, Kakashi selectively revealed the truth. That enemy wanted to steal my Sharingan. To prevent him from taking Obito's keepsake, I had no choice but to destroy this eye. Sigh. Looking at Kakashi's somewhat dejected expression, Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed deeply and gazed towards the Hokage Rock. His own Hokage Rock was mostly destroyed, but the second Hokage Rock beside it remained intact, gleaming in the sunlight. Many root researchers had been arrested. According to their confessions, Danzo and Orochimaru's wood-release experiments had not yet succeeded, and he had previously ruled out any survivors of the wood-release reconstruction project he initiated. Therefore, the mastermind behind the Nine Tails Rampage and this current Monster and Seven Tails Rampage could only have obtained wood-release from Tobirama-sensei's experiments. Tobirama-sensei, recalling Tobirama's perpetually cold and stern face, Hiruzen Sarutobi felt a pang of resentment towards his mentor for the first time. "You've really left me with a mess." Chapter 60 Eye Technique. Sharingan are hot swappable, that's common knowledge. After escaping the Kamui dimension, Uchiha Gen, streaking across the distance, returned to his laboratory at lightning speed. He activated a defensive barrier and expertly performed the eye transfer surgery. After reinstalling his 3-tomo Sharingan, Uchiha Gen groaned, his body convulsing as he collapsed to the ground. Yin-release chakra flowed along the chakra pathways into the Sharingan, beginning the evolution of Uchiha Gen's 3-tomo Sharingan. During this process, Uchiha Gen's emotions instantly returned to the incredibly joyful moment before. He felt as if his brain had experienced a cosmic explosion. Countless points of dawn-like light formed an endless cosmic storm in his brain, sweeping across his entire being. The storm swirled within him, causing his consciousness to go blank in this extreme pleasure, completely swallowed and dissolved by the storm. His brain instantly secreted massive amounts of dopamine, and his adrenaline levels surged dramatically. Delicious food can increase dopamine levels in the body by about 30%, a perfect shirtless sexual encounter can increase dopamine secretion by 100% to 200%, and certain illegal drugs can increase it by 500% to 800%. Uchiha Gen was experiencing true human bliss at this moment, dozens of times beyond the normal threshold. The massive release of adrenaline caused Uchiha Gen's heart rate to reach its limit of 6 or 7 beats per second, significantly boosting blood circulation and cell metabolism, thoroughly exciting every cell in Uchiha Gen's body. Lying on the ground, Uchiha Gen had completely lost consciousness and sensation, his entire body convulsing unconsciously, his skin flushed and drenched in sweat. He didn't know how much time had passed. Water, Uchiha Gen, limp and exhausted, regained consciousness, murmuring, feeling a burning pain in his throat, his skin as dry and rough as dried beef. He struggled to crawl to the lab bench, turned on the tap he usually used to rinse utensils, and carelessly brought his mouth to the tap to drink deeply. After replenishing his fluids, Uchiha Gen walked somewhat dazedly to the full-length mirror in the laboratory, observing his deep, bright eyes reflected in the mirror, eyes that seemed to contain a starry sky. Even without activating his Sharingan, he could sense a tremendous change within himself. His Mangekyō Sharingan, even in its normal state, possessed a dazzling, piercing gaze. Uchiha Gen smiled smugly, activating his 3-tomo Sharingan and further enhancing his eye power. The 3-tomo in his eyes rapidly rotated, leaving trailing patterns, their tails straightening as they moved outwards, while the pupils in the center expanded. Finally, the 3-tomo transformed into 3 lines, thicker at the front and thinner at the back, connecting end to end. The instant the Mangekyō Sharingan activated, another stream of information, seemingly from the depths of his soul and body, flooded into Uchiha Gen's brain, the technique born from within the Mangekyō. Uchiha Gen carefully examined the Mangekyō pattern in the mirror, digesting the information about his own eye technique. Within these 2 Mangekyō Sharingan, besides Susanoo, each eye also harbors a taijutsu, eye technique. The taijutsu within each Mangekyō Sharingan is either a reflection of the user's mind or related to their chosen skill, either is possible. Abido. Yearning to escape the tragic world of Rin being pierced through the chest by Kakashi, awakened Kamui, a power possessing a different dimension. Sasuke, upon awakening, desired to destroy Konoha, awakening Amaterasu, symbolizing destruction, and Kagutsuchi, capable of controlling that destruction. Itachi, skilled in fire release and genjutsu, awakened Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi. Shisui, most proficient in genjutsu and also desiring to change the hostile sentiments of the village Jin clan, awakened Kido Matsukami, capable of altering people's thoughts. Genji Uchiha's left eye taijutsu is called Amanatsu no Tsunamitsu. Amanatsu no Tsunamitsu is one of the 5 creator gods in legend, alongside Amaterasu no Minakata and 3 other deities, and Genji Uchiha's Amanatsu no Tsunamitsu uses it as its symbol. This eye technique reflects Uchiha Gen's mental state when he awakened the Mangekyō Sharingan. He was thinking, "This is so awesome. I wish I could keep going like this forever." Thus, the rare time-based eye technique, heavenly constant monarch, was born to fulfill Uchiha Gen's wish for constant enjoyment. When using this technique, Uchiha Gen can anchor himself in his current state and then, after a period of time, return to the anchor point state. Upon returning to the anchor point, Uchiha Gen only consumes a portion of his eye power, everything else is restored to normal. Want more enjoyment after the initial thrill? It returns you to your previous state, allowing you to enjoy it again, and keep going forever. Uchiha Gen's right eye technique is called Susanoo. Susanoo is another name for Susanoo, one of the three noble sons in mythology. This eye technique originates from Uchiha Gen's own skills. Uchiha Gen had extensive experience using Susanoo, including the fully realized form, which was far beyond what a three-tomo Uchiha could achieve. Since he was skilled with Susanoo, the Susanoo technique would make him even more adept. Susanoo symbolized the pinnacle of yin release form transformation. Possessing this eye technique greatly reduced the eye power consumption and Mangekyō Sharingan damage when using Susanoo, and allowed him to adjust and control Susanoo at his own will. For example, he could easily mix Susanoo grow 3 heads and 6 arms wielding 6 different weapons, or transform it into a full-body suit of armor, allowing him to manipulate Susanoo in countless ways. What a pity! Space-time ninjutsu is the most mysterious and troublesome. If Susanoo could use a space-time ninjutsu like Kamui, wouldn't I be invincible? Uchiha Gen shook his head, somewhat greedily, and sighed. Maybe he should go out and try out Susanoo, to see what color it was. Clang. Clang. There seemed to be some noise above the laboratory, but it stopped after a few seconds. Uchiha Gen's laboratory was located below his residence within the Uchiha clan compound. It had been expanded after he became the clan head, with the addition of several roads leading to other parts of the compound. He had rushed back to perform surgery and hadn't even seen Hikari. Could something have happened to her? Of course, Uchiha Gen wasn't worried about Hikari, but rather about others she might have accidentally injured. Uchiha Gen vanished instantly, quickly passing through the laboratory's passageway and emerging from the fireplace in his living room. The living room was a mess. Uchiha Gen's favorite cola was spilled everywhere, the sofa was askew, and the table was broken into pieces. Hikari was unharmed, clumsily trying to clean up with a rag and broom. Of course, that wasn't important. What mattered was the man Hikari had tossed aside like trash next to the garbage can. Although his face was buried in the ground. But his blood-stained lab coat, his pale skin, and the blue-green Magatama-shaped earring beside his ear all betrayed him. Mr. Snake, all encounters in this world are reunions after a long separation. Chapter 61 The Path to Godhood? According to the victim, Uchiha Hikaru's confession, or Orochimaru's crime unfolded as follows. He attempted to sneak into Uchiha Gen's laboratory but encountered Hikaru watching television in the living room. Orochimaru tried to ambush Hikaru. Orochimaru was hit by Tsukuyomi, but he continued to attack. Orochimaru was then hit by a genjutsu, and collapsed. Uchiha Gen sealed Orochimaru's chakra with a sealing technique, then threaded a long rope through his neck, tying 3 knots at his chest and abdomen, finally wrapping the rope from his back to the front and tying it tightly at his lower abdomen. Afterwards, Uchiha Gen and Hikaru cleaned the living room, quietly waiting for Orochimaru to wake up. 20 minutes later. Whoosh! Orochimaru's breathing suddenly changed. He didn't open his eyes, nor did he make any attempt to break free or extract chakra. He simply rolled over like a salted fish, relieving himself of the chakra burrow. Sealing techniques and even the tortoise shell binding technique, which he could break free of, errant ninjutsu, the tortoise shell binding technique, couldn't restrain him, the leader of the Sannin. But the 2 Uchihas sitting on the sofa completely extinguished his desire to be humiliated again. It's worth mentioning that Jiraiya, Orochimaru, and Tsunade all considered themselves the leader of the Sannin. Orochimaru's early life was incredibly smooth, a typical Konoha protagonist. His only major failure was losing the competition for the 4th Hokage to Minato. But that was because Sarutobi-sensei was biased. However, in just a few months, he suffered consecutive defeats at the hands of 2 Uchiha, causing even the arrogant Orochimaru, who had never doubted his own talent, to feel a sense of loss. The Sharingan. My talent is second to none. It is precisely because I lack this beautiful and powerful force that I have failed. In Orochimaru's view, the path to immortality is like a boundless sea, the human body is like a raft, the soul floats on the boat to exist in the world, and when the boat capsizes, the body perishes. Since capsizing means certain death, then change ships, and change them to the finest, most luxurious ocean liners, so they can go further. With this in mind, he created his own longevity technique, the reanimation jutsu. And today, he finally realized that the perfect vessel for the reanimation jutsu is the Uchiha clan, the Sharingan. I can't defeat Uchiha Genji, but Shisui and Itachi, I'll patiently wait for you to mature. Raising his head and taking a deep breath, Orochimaru opened his eyes, his golden vertical pupils filled with burning desire. Of course, right now, he first had to survive Uchiha Genji. Clan chief, it's a misunderstanding. Orochimaru straightened up, a smile playing on his lips, as if he were greeting a long-lost friend. He said to Uchiha Genji, I was thinking that since I'm leaving Konoha soon, the information on the demon sprout technique I promised you hasn't arrived yet, so I came to deliver it. Orochimaru pressed his hand to his chest. Even without using chakra, he could use his modified body to perform many effects similar to ninjutsu. Clutching his chest, he opened his mouth and spat out a scroll onto the table in front of Uchiha Genji. Uchiha Genji glanced disdainfully at the sticky snake saliva on the scroll, put on disposable gloves, and opened the information Orochimaru had presented. As he read, his brows furrowed. Demon Sprout Technique. Hiruko absorbed 4 bloodline limits using this technique, reaching the level of a cage. He even hoped to obtain the Sharingan bloodline limit through it, then combine the 5 bloodlines into one, becoming an immortal and incredibly powerful perfect ninja. Uchiha Gen had high expectations for this technique. Hiruko's vision limited him to ninjutsu bloodlines and the Sharingan, but Uchiha Gen could consider various ninja clans that inherited the Otsutsuki bloodline. If he used his Uchiha bloodline as a foundation, fusing it with the Senjo Uzumaki bloodlines, wouldn't he be able to replicate the bloodline of the Sage of Six Paths? If he added the bloodlines of Haguramo, Hyuga, Kaguya, and the descendants of Hamura from the moon, he might even be able to approach Kaguya Otsutsuki's bloodline? However, Orochimaru's detailed information dealt Uchiha Gen a heavy blow. The method of absorbing bloodlines using the Onigaraku technique was less about fusion and more about chimera or grafting, a rather simple and brutal method. Just like the chimera and other chimera ninja beasts created by Hiruko, which are fusions of multiple creatures, the essence of the Onigaraku technique is actually using Onigaraku as an adhesive to absorb a portion of the bloodline limit organ and chakra pathways of the bloodline limit ninja to be absorbed into one's own body, and then attach it to one's own chakra pathways and internal body, thereby gaining the ability to use the other party's bloodline limit. In other words, this fusion is not a fusion at the genetic or cellular level, but only a transplantation and fusion of tissues and organs. This kind of fusion has a very high failure rate, and even if it succeeds, there will inevitably be great hidden dangers. Uchiha Gen shook his head. Yes, this technique is only a work in progress. Each fusion of a bloodline limit increases the burden on the body many times over. Orochimaru also looked down on the technique, chuckling. Hiruko made some improvements to it. But no matter what, the human body cannot withstand the imagined perfect fusion of 5 bloodlines. Even if everything is perfected, the probability of success is still pitifully low. Orochimaru arrogantly assessed his former comrade, believing Hiruko was gambling his life on a 1 in 10,000 chance, or even less. Yes, it's impossible for a human to complete this technique. Uchiha Gen nodded in agreement, but still felt somewhat resentful. The grafting method of the Onigara technique was indeed unsuitable for humans, unless they were inhuman. Or rather, there needed to be a non-human intermediary to bear the burden of the Onigara technique. This intermediary needed to have extremely strong vitality, be replicable as experimental material, and ideally possess both plant and animal properties, facilitating grafting. Uchiha Gen's eyes gradually brightened. In this world, there exists such a thing, the first-generation cell. The first-generation cell's devouring power is far too violent. Almost as soon as it absorbs nutrients and chakra, it grows into a terrifying flesh and blood tree that devours everything, making it extremely difficult to transplant and fuse with. But what if we didn't restrict it, but instead unleashed its devouring power? His thoughts immediately began to wander even further. It is known that the divine tree plus the sacrifice of an Otsutsuki equals Kaguya's chakra fruit plus the complete 10 tails. So, what if the mini-youthful version of the divine tree cultivated by the first-generation cell was grafted with a bloodline inheriting a portion of the Otsutsuki's bloodline? This would be a degraded version of the bloodline limit ritual completed by Otsutsuki Kaguya. Even if it could only replicate a fraction of the effects of a true chakra fruit or the 10 tails, it could pave a path for Uchiha Gen to directly reach the 6 paths level. He could cultivate multiple fruits such as the Uzumaki chakra fruit and the Hyuga chakra fruit, finding a shortcut to gather the 6 paths bloodline and the massive chakra of the 6 paths level. This path may seem elusive and arduous, but at least Uchiha Gen saw an opportunity to become a god. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62 Beginning. Uchiha Gen was already very strong. Even without his prosthetic eye, he possessed the Mangekyō Sharingan, making him a top-tier ninja in the ninja world. If his prosthetic eye's power were at its peak, he would be a slightly weaker, 10-minute version of Uchiha Madara from the Valley of the End battle, undoubtedly the strongest ninja in the world now that the two great ninjas had passed away. But even the two great ninjas were worlds apart from the Sage of Six Paths and Kaguya. Uchiha Gen felt a surge of excitement. Then the important thing next is to cultivate the sapling using the first Hokage's cells, further improve the Onigararu technique to make the grafting more perfect, and find a location with abundant energy to plant the tree. 1,000 years ago, the divine tree absorbed most of the natural energy of the ninja world. Even if Uchiha Gen's miniature divine tree of youth absorbed only a small amount, it would still need a ley line node with abundant natural energy, like the 3 great sacred lands. Moreover, in the early stages, he certainly couldn't use his identity as Uchiha Gen to seize these key points and plant trees. That would make him an enemy of the ninja world. He still needed to wear a disguise. Uchiha Gen pondered, his expression shifting between light and shadow. Orochimaru, seeing Uchiha Gen remain silent for so long, assumed he was considering whether to kill him and felt uneasy. He tentatively said, "Gen-kun, actually, I know many more techniques. If you're not satisfied with the demon sprout technique, I know other techniques as well." Uchiha Gen's mind was already filled with various plans for the future. He glanced at Orochimaru with dissatisfaction, unable to decide how to deal with him. Kill him? Too much of a waste. Control him with ninjutsu? Orochimaru's greatest value was his research ability, and research wasn't something one could do when their brain was a mess. Kodomatsukami? Shisui and his prosthetic eye's permanent Kodomatsukami were still on cooldown, but he could use a short-term Kodomatsukami to force Orochimaru to hand over all the forbidden ninjutsu and research data he knew. After squeezing Orochimaru dry, let's release him. We need to give him more autonomy, let him roam free for a while before squeezing him again. Knock knock knock, Miss Ikari, are you there? Shisui's clear, bright voice rang out from outside the door. Come in, Shisui, the door's open, Uchiha Gen replied. Jenny, you're back? Everyone outside is worried about you, they're looking for you everywhere. Shisui walked into the room carrying a burlap sack, his voice gentle but still somewhat reproachful. I brought Inohime back, went to the root base first. Eh? Orochimaru-sama, Shisui looked at the bound Orochimaru in surprise, his usual respectful address almost slipping out, but remembering Orochimaru's defection, he couldn't bring himself to say Lord Orochimaru? What happened to him? Inohime's indistinct question suddenly came from the large burlap sack Shisui was carrying. Shisui glanced at Orochimaru a few times, placed the sack on the ground, and untied the rope binding the opening. Phew, damn Shisui, I was suffocating. Inohime poked her head out of the sack, took a deep breath, and tried to get up, but her injured leg gave way, and she collapsed to the ground, entangled with the sack. She couldn't lower her head, her dignity would be lost. With a bruised and swollen face, Inohime struggled to raise her head, her eyes meeting those familiar golden vertical pupils. Lord Orochimaru? Didn't you tell me to split up? How come we're meeting again after only an hour? Inohime's clear eyes were full of confusion. You said you wanted to escape, but you were destined to stay? Orochimaru felt somewhat embarrassed by Inohime's gaze, licked his lips, gave a sinister smile, and avoided Inohime's bewildered look. Shisui, how did you manage to beat Inayasa like this? Looking at Inayasa's bruised and bloodied face, Uchiha Gen was shocked. You could have easily subdued him with your strength, right? Didn't you say in the genjutsu that you'd break his legs to bring him back? He's much more resilient now, this injury is nothing. Shisui smiled gently, his smile as gentle and languid as ever, making people feel incredibly comfortable and at ease. Orochimaru frowned slightly, glancing at Shisu's clothes, which were almost entirely covered in dust. He knew Inayasa's strength even better than Inayasa himself. In his opinion, only about 10 people in Konoha could defeat Inayasa at his current level, and 13-year-old Shisu shouldn't be among them, much less win so easily. Soon, Uchiha Gen answered Orochimaru's question. Alright. Shisu, use your eye technique on Orochimaru and make him hand over all the forbidden ninjutsu and important research data he knows. What? Orochimaru shuddered in surprise, instantly breaking free from the ropes and sealing techniques, preparing for a desperate gamble, or rather, an escape. But it was too late. Orochimaru, you're about to be hit by a Mangekyō Sharingan. 3 Mangekyō Sharingan users await you. What a blessing. Uchiha Shisu has also awakened the Mangekyō Sharingan? Does that mean we have to wait until Itachi grows up, forced to meet Shisu's gaze? This was the last thought that flashed through Orochimaru's mind before he temporarily became a puppet of Kodomatsu Kami. Afterward, he immediately transformed into the ruthless, word-writing Orochimaru, beginning to record the various ninjutsu he had learned on scrolls. As a Hokage disciple and a long-time sole candidate for the 4th Hokage, he had previously had free reign over the Book of Sealing Techniques. Although Orochimaru hadn't studied or researched many techniques, he still knew their general principles and foundations, which he passed on without reservation. Flying Thunder God Technique, 2nd Hokage's basic version, Impure World Reincarnation Technique, Orochimaru's preliminary improved version, 9-Faced Hazakawa, 5 Elements Great Combo, 1 by 1. All the S-rank forbidden ninjutsu from Konoha's collection fell into Uchiha Gen's hands. Night. Hokage building. So, the Uchiha clan head is alright? He's already returned to the clan. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat in the Hokage's chair, taking a deep drag on his pipe, frowning as he listened to the Anbu's report. According to the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Gen fought a fierce battle with the enemy, from the forest to another dimension, even obliterating the Great Dao. In short, it was a fierce battle. And then Uchiha Gen won, and the enemy escaped. Hamura, the enemy is proficient in space-time ninjutsu, so you will be responsible for strengthening the Konoha barrier space-time ninjutsu perception capabilities. After listening to the Anbu's report, the 3rd Hokage directly entrusted the heavy responsibility of defending against Obito's space-time ninjutsu to the white-haired Hamura Midakato. There was no other way. Space-time ninjutsu is difficult to learn, and even more difficult to master. After Minato Namikaze's death, Hamura Midakato, who possessed only a rudimentary understanding of space-time ninjutsu, had become the village's most authoritative expert in this field. Hiruzen, there's something else. Kaoru Uchiha, always inseparable from Hamura Midakato, frowned and narrowed her eyes. The Kurigakure delegation has entered the Land of Fire and will arrive in Konoha in 3 days. But given the village's recent turmoil, should we postpone their arrival? While Konoha's losses in personnel and buildings during this upheaval were far less than during the Nine-Tails attack, the loss of Danzo and Orochimaru, 2 top-tier ninjas, was still significant. Alright, the delegation's meeting for peace talks will proceed as planned, but after signing a peace treaty with Kurigakure, we will announce the arrest warrants for Danzo and Orochimaru to the ninja world. Hiruzen Sarutobi took the scroll containing the delegation's information from Kaoru Uchiha and began to peruse it with a grim expression. The head of the delegation, Kurigakure Junin, Mizukage's secretary, Yagura's confidant, Gen. This person was deeply trusted by Yagura, but specific details are unknown. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression darkened further. The name Yuan alone made him feel uneasy. Chapter 63 Peace Conference. Konoha Embassy. After setting up soundproof and defensive barriers, Uchiha Gen's clone was doing the final work with Kaguya Ren, the vice envoy of the Kurigakure delegation, before signing the peace treaty. The Kaguya clan was the only clan in the entire ninja world that could rival the Uchiha in madness. Although Kaguya Ren was one of the few normal people in the Kaguya clan, he wouldn't indiscriminately attack anyone. He was brought along to take advantage of his mental illness. Alright, stop nagging. I've got it all. Kaguya Ren, with 2 red dots on her eyebrows and her hair in a bun, was impatient with Uchiha Gen's instructions. She picked her nose, crumpled up the filth inside, and flicked it onto the table. Isn't it just stirring up conflict between the ninja clans and the Hokage when signing the agreement? That's it. Kaguya Ren propped her legs up on the table, tilted her head back, and shrugged. What do you mean by arrogant and smug expression? I think every dog I see on the street is arrogant and smug. I really don't understand that concept. Gen looked at Kaguya-ren's unrestrained posture and nodded in satisfaction. Just tone it down a bit later. Let's go, Konoha TV, Konoha TV. We are now broadcasting live footage of the signing of the peace agreement between Konoha and Karegakure. You are now seeing the Karegakure delegation approaching. A well-known ninja protection brand reminds you to use it for safety. Outside the Hokage building, the place was packed with people today, mostly from various newspapers and TV stations contacted by Hiruzen Sarutobi, along with a large number of Konoha ninjas disguised as demonstrators. Signing a peace agreement with Karegakure, what is that? It's an achievement. It's a glorious achievement of Konoha's flourishing development under the leadership of the F3. Hiruzen Sarutobi had never expected the Hidden Mist's envoys to be so sincere. After only 2 brief meetings, they had reached a preliminary consensus with Konoha on the Konoha Hidden Mist non-aggression pact. The main point of the agreement was that Hidden Mist would not proactively invade the Land of Fire. After all, Konoha was a superior ninja village, possessing everything, and located in the center of the ninja world. Hiruzen Sarutobi had no intention of expanding or invading. With the agreement officially signed today, true peace would finally arrive. When we revise the Ninja Academy textbooks next year, we must include this agreement. Its content, significance, and impact must all be mandatory questions on the Ninja Academy graduation exams. Hiruzen Sarutobi, beaming with joy as he watched the Hidden Mist delegation approach, even took a few steps forward to warmly shake the hand of the Hidden Mist's chief envoy. General, come, let's talk inside. Half a month had passed since the last monster rampage, and the Konoha construction team had long since renovated the area around the Hokage building. Under Hiruzen Sarutobi's warm welcome, the Karegakure delegation entered the Hokage building's main conference room without hindrance. Inside, almost all of Konoha's Jonin were present, seated according to rank. A long table had been added to the center of the conference room for the Karegakure envoy and Konoha's high-ranking officials to sign agreements. After taking their seats and exchanging pleasantries, Hiruzen Sarutobi delivered an 8,000-word Konoha Karegakure friendship and neighborly declaration. In the declaration, the third Hokage highly praised the fourth Karegakure leader, Yagura's peace ideals, emphasizing the need to set aside past issues with Karegakure, strengthen cooperation in multiple fields and aspects, and jointly combat ninja terrorists. Following this, the Karegakure delegation's representative, the fourth Mizukage, also delivered a speech. The numerous Jonin below the stage gave a round of applause, creating a pleasant atmosphere for both hosts and guests. The foreplay was perfect. Now it was time for the main event. 2 copies of the peace agreement had already been prepared. Next, both sides should have signed it, and this political charade should have ended perfectly. However, as expected, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Bang! Kaguya-ren, the deputy envoy of Karegakure, slammed her hand on the table and spat directly at Midokado Hamura, the Hokage's advisor sitting opposite her. Midokado Hamura slightly tilted his head, dodging Kaguya-ren's spray, clenched his fists, and his eyes were filled with rage. But before he could speak, Kaguya-ren had already plopped down on the long table, waving the peace agreement with a sinister grin and roaring, "You Konoha have no respect for Karegakure. This is an insult and a betrayal of Karegakure. How dare you treat Karegakure like this? Aren't you afraid that the Karegakure army will once again storm the east coast of the Land of Fire?" A loud voice doesn't necessarily mean justice, but a powerful roar can certainly intimidate. Seeing Kaguya-ren's furious glare, Midokado Hamura's displeasure vanished instantly, replaced by self-doubt. He asked weakly, "Vice Envoy Ren, is there something wrong with the agreement? But it was drafted according to our prior agreement. Of course it's wrong." "Of course it's wrong." Kaguya-ren kicked her chair to pieces, clenching her teeth and hysterically grabbing her hair, screaming as she circled the long table twice until her hair was disheveled and her clothes were in disarray. Then, she glared at Hiruzen Sarutobi across the table and said, "You have no respect for Karegakure. You have no intention of negotiating with Karegakure. Is this envoy suffering from mania?" Hiruzen Sarutobi's mind went blank. He looked at the Karegakure envoy, Genji, with a puzzled expression, only to see that the Mizukage's secretary also had a gloomy face, her eyes filled with displeasure. "Envoy Genji, is there some misunderstanding? What did Konoha do wrong? Tell us and we can change it." Yuan remained silent, but Kaguya-ren let out a series of eerie laughs that sent chills down one's spine. She then slammed the peace agreement on the table, breathing heavily as if she were suffocating, and said, "If you had even a shred of sincerity, why are only a few of you nearing your grave signing this peace agreement? Isn't this just a plan to break the agreement after you die?" Hiruzen Sarutobi was completely bewildered. The agreement was signed by 4 people from each side, Konoha and Kirigakure. Konoha had him, the Hokage, along with his 2 advisors, Yan and Kaharu, and the Jonin team leader, Narashikaku. Was there a problem? A rib suddenly protruded from Kaguya-ren's chest. He broke it off and pointed it at the signature area on the agreement, angrily saying, "I, a member of Kirigakure, know that Konoha was founded by the Senju and Uchiha clans. Why aren't there signatures from the Senju and Uchiha clans on this? Oh right. The Senju are gone, but there's still the Hyuga. Without the signatures of these 2 clans, this peace agreement is worthless. Hazuki, Kaguya, and Yuki from Kirigakure all signed it, and these 2 clans must sign it too. Only when the clan leaders of these 2 clans also sign it, guaranteeing it with the honor of their clans, will this agreement have any credibility." As soon as Kaguya-ren finished speaking, the Jonin in the conference room subtly glanced at Hyuga Hayashi and Uchiha Gen, who were sitting in the front row. "So that's how it is. I heard that the Kirigakure ninja clans are powerful and even dare to bully the Mizukage. These barbarians must have brought their village's situation to Konoha?" Hiruzen Sarutobi found it amusing, lamenting how difficult the position of Mizukage was, and tried to smooth things over by smiling and suggesting, "How about I vouch for you as the head of the Sarutobi clan? We can add that to the agreement, Sarutobi." "How can a monkey from the mountains vouch for someone?" Ren Kaguya's eyes darted around, and she scoffed. The meeting room fell into deathly silence. Chapter 64 Hiruzen Sarutobi is waving toilet paper. The Sarutobi clan, what kind of trash are they? Do they even deserve to be compared to our Kaguya clan? Kaguya-ren didn't say it directly, but her stern nose and disdainful laughter clearly conveyed the same meaning. Sarutobi Hiruzen's face turned ashen. Even though he was called Monkey, it was just a nickname used by close friends. No one had ever spoken of him or his family with such contempt. Perhaps the envoy misheard. "I said my family can vouch for me." Sarutobi Hiruzen tried to salvage the situation. "Sarutobi? I wonder what kind of bloodline limit or secret technique this clan possesses? How many years of history does it have? What figures has it produced that can rival the Senju, Uchiha, and Hyuga clans, which have been powerful clans since the era of ninjutsu?" The Mist Village's envoy, Genji, who had been sitting upright, suddenly turned to look at the Hyuga clan's camp and laughed. During the Warring States period, the Hyuga and Kaguya formed an alliance, supporting each other for 300 years without ever betraying. That's what an alliance is, that's what trust is. The Sarutobi clan has less than 200 years of history, and only gained some fame among your father, Sarutobi Sasuke, the 3rd Hokage. They're probably not even qualified to vouch for us, are they? There is a hierarchy of contempt among ninja clans. Those like the Senju, Uchiha, and Kaguya, who can be associated with the Sage of 6 Paths, stand at the top of this hierarchy. Next are bloodline limit clans like the Yuki and Kurama, followed by clans using various secret techniques. Clans like the Sarutobi, who rely on ninjutsu, are naturally at the bottom of this hierarchy. The Sarutobi clan's reputation in the ninja world is even less than that of their summoning beast, the Enma clan. So, when the other side used the prestige of the 3 great ninja clans of Kirigakure as leverage, the Sarutobi clan was obviously not qualified to be their equal. Hiruzen Sarutobi was deeply offended, but it was the truth, and he had to swallow his pride. The Senju clan had already retired, and now the only one who could represent the Senju was Tsunade, who was out in the public eye. Then, the Uchiha and Hyuga? Hiruzen Sarutobi looked at Uchiha Gen and Hyuga Hayashi in the front row of the meeting room, hoping they would step forward, but Uchiha Gen stood with his arms crossed, only his nostrils pointing at him, and Hyuga Hayashi also had his eyes lowered, expressionless. His expression grew increasingly grim. The Uchiha were arrogant, and the Hyuga were rigid, neither could be commanded. Soon, the meeting was suspended, and the Konoha F3 met with Uchiha Gen and Hyuga Hayashi in a small cubicle. "This is sowing discord, 3rd Hokage," Uchiha Gen smiled. He had orchestrated everything today, but he still wanted to play the victim. The Hidden Mist Village is ambitious and wants to incite conflict between the Uchiha and Hyuga clans and the village. The village trusts you all very much, they can't sow discord. Hiruzen Sarutobi's expression was still somewhat unpleasant, and he said in a sharp voice, "You can rest assured and sign it later." "No way, Uchiha Gen shook his head indifferently. The Uchiha have 1,000 years of reputation and honor. We can't guarantee something like this. Uchiha Gen, Kaoru Uchiha was furious, slamming her hand on the table and rising to her feet, her voice suddenly rising. For the sake of the village. Signing a document is nothing difficult. Can the village guarantee that it won't go to war with the hidden mist village for the next 50 or 100 years? No way, right? Uchiha Gen grinned, not taking the elder's anger seriously, seemingly unmoved by reason. If Kurigakure wants to continue fighting, the Uchiha will fight to the death without batting an eye. But as the Uchiha clan head, I absolutely cannot allow the Uchiha's reputation to be damaged, unless more money is required. The atmosphere instantly froze. Kaoru Uchiha snorted coldly and looked at Hayashi again. Hayashi ignored her, keeping his head down and remaining silent, clearly sharing the same thought as Genji Uchiha. Due to the situation of the main and branch families, the Hyuga clan's rules and laws are the strictest in the ninja world, and they value face the most, also unwilling to use the clan's reputation as collateral. Two stubborn mules. Hirozen Sarutobi narrowed his eyes slightly, wrinkles etched into his face. He was now in a bind. After investing huge amounts of publicity resources, if he failed to sign an agreement today, regardless of the potential war, he would inevitably face a backlash from public opinion. Kaguya and Hyuga, are there still connections between these two clans? Hirozen Sarutobi glanced at Hayashi suspiciously, knowing that he would have to pay a heavy price today. He raised his head, glanced at his two old companions with a complicated expression, and frowned, saying, after Danzo's defection, the advisory council has a vacancy for an elder. Each of you clan leaders should recommend a candidate. He was using the vacant elder position to get them to sign voluntarily, then instigating a conflict between the Uchiha and Hyuga clans, ultimately not even giving the elder position to one of them. Hirozen Sarutobi's plan was shrewd. He believed neither the Hyuga nor the Uchiha could resist the temptation of the elder position. Hayashi Hyuga was indeed somewhat tempted, but before he could speak, Gen Uchiha preemptively said, Gen is young and inexperienced, unfit for such a great responsibility. Let Hayashi-senpai do it. With that, Gen Uchiha has subtly shifted the focus from candidate to Hayashi Hyuga, then added, however, after the reorganization of the police department, there are some areas where we need the village's support. The police department plans to build 4 branch offices near the 4 commercial districts of Konoha, but there is still a shortage of funds. Also, the 12th Division is currently responsible for the legal review of scientific research and experiments in the village, and we hope that Konoha Hospital will proactively report any human experiments they conduct in the future. Gen Uchiha's demands can be summarized in 2 words, more money and expanded authority. But he was very measured. The various powers he requested, besides the money, were basically subdivisions and extensions of the police department's original work. For example, the prosecutorial power, judgment power, and supervisory power subdivided from the trial of criminals were things that Hirozen Sarutobi considered trivial. The third Hokage pondered for a moment, finding no problem, and after some further haggling over the money, finally agreed to Uchiha Gen's demands. The meeting quickly resumed, with the Hyuga and Uchiha clans guaranteeing the agreement with their clan's honor. The value and effectiveness of the Konoha and Kurigakure non-aggression pact were greatly enhanced, and the Kurigakure delegation didn't cause any more trouble. For peace, after shaking hands again with this Gen, whom he disliked as much as Uchiha Gen, Hirozen Sarutobi, full of pride, took the signed peace agreement and jumped to the roof of the Hokage building. He triumphantly waved the Konoha and Kurigakure non-aggression pact and began his speech to the thousands of people in the square in front of the Hokage building. Today, I bring back peace for a generation. Konoha, this is for you. Down below, watching the jubilant Hirozen Sarutobi, Uchiha Gen also showed a genuine smile. From today onwards, as long as it concerns Konoha, the security department can legally intervene, and it all depends on whether the security department's fist is strong enough. Are the Uchiha's fists hard? They're incredibly hard. Let the Holy Hokage, Hirozen Sarutobi, rule with a carefree attitude and make clay statues. Let the affairs of Konoha be left to the wise Uchiha. Chapter 65. Why does the Uchiha look down his nose at people? One day, I'll create a world where only I have hair and eyebrows, the bald Uchiha Yatsushiro complained to Uchiha Shisui beside him, pushing a car full of fish eggs. The Uchiha Police Department was currently undertaking massive infrastructure construction, building branch offices, prosecutors' offices, courts, and other buildings, while the clan was building a fish farming base. The entire Uchiha clan was incredibly busy. Even the bald Yatsushiro had to show his face every day, even occasionally doing menial tasks like transporting fish eggs to the 12th Division's laboratory. Fortunately, the Uchiha genius Shisui also had to do this kind of work. "Oh, Mom, these fish eggs aren't very tasty, otherwise I'd give you some." Shisui greeted the Konoha villagers he encountered on the street with a friendly smile, his warm and welcoming demeanor making everyone feel comfortable. But this gentleness made Yatsushiro very uncomfortable. Shisui had become the focus of attention on the street, which meant that Yatsushiro, walking beside him, was also being watched by everyone, even more obvious. After all, no one can ignore a glowing hard-boiled egg. "Shisui, these useless social interactions will only slow down your progress." Entering the guard headquarters building and heading towards the newly built underground laboratory, Yoshiro, with the air of a seasoned veteran, earnestly advised, "Your aptitude is so outstanding, now is the most crucial time. You should be diligently training to awaken a Mangekyō Sharingan as soon as possible. Why don't you shave your hair and eyebrows like me? My eye power has increased quite a bit recently." Ugly refusal. "No way." Shisui politely declined Yoshiro's suggestion. Steer the conversation to another topic. "Uncle Yoshiro, the clan is so busy right now, and there are so many things we need to do with the villagers. I think it's best if everyone is a little more polite and doesn't look down on others." "What kind of talk is that?" "Shisui, you don't understand." Yoshiro frowned, coughed lightly, and argued, "Looking down on someone at least shows we're not planning to fight. If we stare directly at them, it's easy to be misunderstood as us trying to use genjutsu. For most ninjas, there's no way to be sure if they've fallen under a genjutsu after making eye contact with a Sharingan user. Many vigilant ones will definitely assume they've already been caught in a genjutsu." Then, Yoshiro went on to tell Shisui about a series of misunderstandings and battles caused by Uchiha glaring at people, summarizing it all in one sentence: "The wisdom of our ancestors cannot be discarded. Looking down on others is the mark of an Uchiha." Thump thump thump. A series of hurried footsteps approached, and Yakira, her face flushed with anger, pressed a cotton swab against the needle mark on her arm and stormed out of the laboratory. Yoshiro immediately raised his head, looking completely disdainful. Yakira glared at the two of them, snorted coldly, and brushed past them without looking back. "See, it worked. This woman was so angry, yet I managed to avoid a fight with her." Yoshiro smiled smugly at Shisui, pushing his cart into the laboratory. Inside, Uchiha Gen, dressed in a white lab coat, was studying a stack of documents. These were experimental records Orochimaru had kept up all night, documenting his transplantation of attribute bodies and bloodline chimeras. Compared to Uchiha Gen's small-scale experiments, where he only dared to transplant his techniques onto fish, Orochimaru, lacking the Mangekyō Sharingan, had even less advanced transplantation techniques, yet he had directly conducted numerous human experiments. After numerous experiments, Orochimaru encountered the same problem as Gen Uchiha. Single attribute bodies had high cell survival rates after transplantation, but transplants of bloodline chimeras all failed. Orochimaru, possessing experimental ice-release bloodline inheritors, concluded after repeated experiments that for transplanted ice-release bloodline chimeras to survive and divide normally, a certain amount of ice-release chakra had to be injected. Therefore, the previous failure of Smoldering was due to the lack of a matching ice-release chakra injection. Gen Uchiha immediately summoned Pakura, who was preparing to return to the Scorched Ninja Village, and with her assistance, successfully cloned scorched-release Smoldering fish eggs. "Women are such a hassle," she said. "I could research her bloodline, but when she came to do experiments, she wore such thick powder, affecting my sampling. Just leave the fish eggs there. Hachimoku, thanks for your hard work. Shisui, you stay and help me with the experiments." After dismissing Hachimoku, Uchiha Gen opened the laboratory's security barrier and, along with Shisui, took some food into the laboratory's basement. In the cramped space, a tall, slender man was huddled up, his curly stubble hanging haphazardly on his thin, bluish face. His once smooth black hair was now dry and rough like a clump of straw. Orochimaru's eye sockets were stained with a distinct bluish-brown ring, and his eyes were cloudy and dark. When the door opened, a flash of ferocious, beast-like green light appeared in his pupils. He had been working for 6 days and 6 nights without eating, drinking, or sleeping, frantically copying various materials. For a top-tier powerhouse who had undergone self-modification, This workload was far from his personal limit, but his condition was inevitably declining. Of course, even if he were in perfect condition, he couldn't escape the clutches of Uchiha Gen and Uchiha Shisui. But, having only regained consciousness for a few minutes, he was already under genjutsu again? When would this end? Come, Orochimaru. Eat something, drink some water, and get a good night's sleep. Uchiha Gen handed Orochimaru apples, eggs, and other foods he liked, and filled a large bucket with tap water from the lab. Was this his last meal? Looking at the very friendly Uchiha Gen, Orochimaru panicked. In the past few days, he had already revealed all his secrets under Shisui's control, and was indeed of no use to Uchiha Gen anymore. Gen-kun, I can help you with things and experiments, Orochimaru said hoarsely. No, Orochimaru, you're free. But before you leave the village, there's one small thing I need you to do. Shisui, this time you don't need him to record ninjutsu, just have him obey my orders. Uchiha Gen smiled and turned to signal Shisui to use Kodomatsukami again. Kodomatsukami. Orochimaru's eyes glazed over. Shisui, panting heavily after unleashing Kodomatsukami once more, clutched his left eye, his face beaming with excitement. Brother Gen, are you suggesting Orochimaru assassinate the third Hokage? A disciple killing his master would surely cause the third Hokage immense heartache. It's just that Orochimaru might not be a match for him. Shisui. You certainly know how to grasp the Naruto tradition. Gon gave Shisui an approving look and shook his head. No, now is not the time to act against the third Hokage. I have another scapegoat that Orochimaru, the rogue ninja, needs to take the blame for. His godlike plan required gathering as many Otsutsuki descendants as possible. Leaving aside the Uchiha, Konoha already had the Hyuga, who possessed the Byakugan. Chapter 66. A day in the life of Hyuga Hisashi. Life at the Hyuga residence was always routine and oppressive. Hyuga Hisashi, returning from the Eastern Front, quickly reintegrated into this decaying atmosphere. 6 o'clock in the morning, wake up and prepare breakfast for Niji. 6:30, greet the head of the family. 7 to 11, practice gentle fist. Today, Niji practiced with him too. His bright eyes, sweet smile, and active movements were also adorable. Niji was only a little over 2 years old, but he was always very well behaved, never crying for no reason like other children his age, always making things easy for Hyuga Hisashi, his single father. If there was anything that worried Hisashi about this child, it was that he was too sensible and too outstanding. Ha. Watching Niji practicing gentle fist meticulously in the courtyard, Hyuga Hisashi always felt a faint sense of melancholy. His older brother Hayashi's child, Hinata, was already 6 months old and very healthy. If my elder brother didn't have children, perhaps Niji could be adopted by him and become the main branch of the family. A devilish thought suddenly flashed through Hyuga Hisashi's mind, and he immediately shook his head in regret, trying to banish this rebellious idea. His relationship with his elder brother was actually quite good. But, Niji, Hyuga Hisashi murmured to himself. Hisashi, a deep voice rang out, its tone 9/10 similar to Hyuga Hisashi's, only heavier and more authoritative. Hyuga Hisashi was startled and jumped up, activating his Byakugan. Without turning around, he could see that behind him were the Hyuga clan head, Hayashi, and the Kurigakure delegation's principal and vice principal envoys, Gen and Kaguya-ren. Hyuga Hisashi adjusted his expression, trying to remain as calm as ever, and turned around to bow to Hayashi, then greet the 2 Kurigakure envoys. Only today do I realize the strength of the Hyuga clan. The Genji from Kurigakure seemed quite excited, pointing at Hyuga Niji who had just used the 8 trigrams 4 palms, and exclaimed with exaggerated praise, with such a gifted prodigy, how could the Hyuga clan not prosper, even in the generally precocious ninja world? Mastering taijutsu at the age of 2 was a rare feat. Mr. Genji, you flatter me. Hyuga Hayashi was also surprised that his nephew Niji could master gentle fist at such a young age, but still modestly replied, what can a 2 or 3-year-old child understand? Mr. Hayashi, you are mistaken. Genji waved his hand, like Kakashi of Konoha and Hazuki Mangekyō of Kurigakure. True geniuses show their extraordinary abilities at the age of 2 or 3. Genji, Mangetsu is already a rogue ninja, Kaguya-ren interjected, immediately creating an awkward atmosphere. Like the Uchiha, Kaguya always possessed a talent that could make everyone uncomfortable with just a few words. As everyone knows, Hazuki Mangetsu not only became an S-rank rogue ninja, but also sent his uncle, the head of the Hazuki clan, to his doom. I misspoke. But the Hyuga clan has strict rules, such a thing would never happen. Gen smoothed things over, seemingly implying that the Hyuga clan was like a caged bird, and then invited Hyuga Hayashi to take them to another part of the Hyuga clan. Hisashi, you may leave. Hyuga Hayashi dismissed Hisashi indifferently, his face showing no emotion, and continued to lead the guests of Kirigakure on their tour. After the group had gone, Hyuga Hisashi straightened his bent back, feeling a cold sweat all over his back. What if Hazuki Mangetsu's example really made his older brother resent Niji? As a branch family member, even if his older brother killed Niji directly, he would be powerless to resist. Just a moment ago, he even felt his heart stop beating. Father, what's wrong? Niji, acting like a little adult, finished his punches and ran to Hyuga Hisashi's side, a naive smile spreading across his youthful face. Nothing. Hisashi knelt down, looking at his only concern with a slight smile, carefully wiping the fine sweat from Niji's brow, then taking Niji's chubby little hand. Let's go home for dinner. That evening, after entrusting Niji to the clan's elderly woman who specialized in caring for children, Hyuga Hisashi left. The Jonin returning from the Eastern Front were having a small gathering, and when he arrived at the restaurant, he discovered that even the current Uchiha clan leader, Uchiha Gen, was present. Although everyone was a little reserved at first, they quickly relaxed. After the meal was finished and the dishes were scattered, just as everyone was about to disperse, Hyuga Hisashi was suddenly stopped by Uchiha General Hisashi-senpai. There's something I've been thinking about for a long time, and I think it's best to tell you. Shall we have some tea? Hisashi followed Uchiha Gen into a tea room adorned with landscape paintings, where they sat facing each other to drink tea and sober up. Sitting cross-legged on a futon, Uchiha Gen took a sip of tea, carefully checked his surroundings with his Sharingan to make sure no one was listening, and then activated his Mangekyō Sharingan. Hisashi instinctively avoided Uchiha Gen's eyes. He had only recently witnessed the power of the Mangekyō Sharingan, and he was still shaken. Clan Chief Gen, what brings you here? If it's something I can do, please tell me, senpai, just call me Gen. Uchiha Gen smiled slightly, then his face immediately turned serious, staring intently at Hisashi across from him until Hisashi felt a chill run down his spine before slowly speaking. When the Sharingan reaches the Mangekyō level, it can awaken some strange eye techniques, such as time reversal or seeing certain possibilities in the future. Why is Gen telling me this? Hisashi was somewhat confused. How about I tell you a story, Hisashi-senpai? A story of a Hyuga genius. Let's call this genius Jiro. Hyuga Jiro was a genius ninja born into the Hyuga clan. At the age of 4, he was branded with a caged bird seal. That same year, his father, being the twin brother of the Hyuga clan head, died in his place. At 12, he graduated from the Ninja Academy as the top student. At 15, Hyuga Jiro became a Jonin, the youngest Jonin in the Hyuga clan's history. Then, at 18, he died protecting the main branch of the clan, without even hearing the confession of the girl who loved him, leaving no heir, dying like a blade of grass on the battlefield. What do you think of this story, Hisashi-senpai? Hisashi didn't speak, the veins on his temples throbbing violently, his face flushing red, a surge of anger flashing in his pure white eyes, his clenched fists cracking. He wasn't stupid. The implication that Jiro was the twin brother of the clan head was far too obvious. Was Uchiha Gen telling the truth? According to clan records, the Mangekyō Sharingan's abilities were indeed incredibly diverse. And it wasn't impossible for some to see the future. Hyuga Hisashi suddenly recalled the events of half a year ago on the Eastern Front, when Uchiha Gen had already determined that Niji's talent far surpassed that of ordinary people. At that time, Niji hadn't started practicing Gentle Fist yet, and hadn't displayed his talent. Hisashi-senpai took good care of me on the battlefield before. I'm very happy to meet you today. Then I'll take my leave. Uchiha Gen finished his tea in one gulp, stood up, and suddenly added, the main family's child is still the main family, and the scapegoat's child is still a scapegoat. Uchiha Gen turned off the tea room lights as he left. In the boundless darkness, only Hyuga Hisashi's bulging Byakugan eyes remained, his features contorted like a vengeful demon. He had long since become heartless and resigned to his fate. But for Niji. Chapter 67 Daily Difference. Night deepened, the moonlight hazy. Hyuga Hisashi sat listlessly by a secluded path, knees drawn up to his chest, staring blankly at the moon. The moonlight was so cold, its gentle flow like icy water mixed with broken ice, constantly seeping into Hyuga Hisashi's heart, repeatedly shattering his inner defenses. After hearing Uchiha Gen's story, he felt for the first time such hatred for the caged bird seal, wishing he could release Niji like a bird, granting him freedom. But he couldn't. As a branch family member, he was powerless to defy the main family. If he secretly sent Niji, before he was branded with a caged bird seal, out of the village, the Byakugan's bounty on the black market was 50 million ryo. Without the caged bird seals restrained, Niji would be a treasure everyone coveted, his eyes likely gouged out or used as a breeding machine. What should I do? Just let Niji accept the branch family's fate like this, Hyuga Hisashi murmured. Hiss. A vibrant green viper slowly slithered towards Hisashi, its tongue flicking rhythmically. That frequency. Orochimaru. Hisashi sprang to his feet, veins bulging on his forehead. He scanned his surroundings with his Byakugan, but saw no trace of Orochimaru. He scrutinized the viper's tongue-flicking rhythm, a special code he'd agreed upon with Orochimaru. East Tower rooftop, 12 o'clock, the caged bird takes flight here. The viper repeated the code several times before vanishing with a pop of smoke. Complete silence fell, the moonlight swing, broken only by Hisashi's pounding heart. Orochimaru was still in the village? Hisashi's forehead broke out in a cold sweat. His first instinct was to immediately report this to the clan head in the Hokage. But then, his body froze. The caged bird. If anyone in Konoha could break this flawless sealing technique, it would probably only be Orochimaru, who enjoys human experimentation. Should he trust Orochimaru? Hyuga Hisashi paced anxiously. It was already past 11. Ultimately, the sliver of hope in his heart overcame his reason, making him grit his teeth and run towards the tallest building on the east side of the village. On the rooftop of the east building in Konoha, the wind howled. A figure silently walked onto the roof, locking the rooftop door behind him before looking warily at the long-haired man standing quietly on the edge of the rooftop. Hisashi, you've come. Orochimaru turned around, his narrow, snake-like eyes gleaming with golden light in the darkness, focusing on Hyuga Hisashi. Orochimaru, I've come to arrest you. Hyuga Hisashi pointed the kunai in his hand at Orochimaru, displaying extreme hostility. You're not sincere, Hisashi, I know you. Orochimaru took a few steps toward Hisashi with disdain, seemingly certain he wouldn't attack. If you really wanted to fight me, you wouldn't have come. Hisashi shrank back slightly, taking a few steps back, his pure white eyes fixed on Orochimaru, as if trying to see through him. The envoy from Kirigakure and Uchiha Gen, are they in cahoots with you? No, no, no. To get someone to act as you wish, you don't need to conspire with them, just a few subtle hints are enough. For example, Uchiha Gen, he heard many people mention your name and Niji's name today. This constant hinting is enough to make him tell you what he thinks he should tell you. After shifting the blame for Uchiha Gen's actions, Orochimaru slowly approached Hisashi. His snake-like eyes narrow into needles, staring intently into Hisashi's eyes. Hisashi met those snake-like eyes, a chill running through him, as if all the blood in his body had frozen. He stiffly turned his head away, avoiding Orochimaru's gaze, and said expressionlessly, what did you mean by what you said in the coded message earlier? You can break the caged bird seal, I can't. Orochimaru smiled slightly, withdrew his gaze, and looked at the flustered Hyuga Hisashi with a playful expression, and said with a sinister smile, I've taken in 2 disciples. One died young, and the other is Anko. Anko's talent is not bad, but staying in Konoha meant she was destined not to be trusted by the higher-ups and would not receive any training. I always need a disciple with outstanding talent, preferably one who can be trained from a young age. Did Orochimaru mean to take Niji away from the village and take Niji as his successor? Hyuga Hisashi was stunned by this incredible offer. A month ago, being taken in by Orochimaru meant being included in the core of the Hokage system, becoming a legitimate successor of the Will of Fire, and having the qualifications to compete for the Hokage position. Even now, with Orochimaru having defected, being taken in by him meant having a cage carefully taught and protected. With Orochimaru's protection, there was no need to worry about Niji having his eyes stolen. Hisashi, momentarily dazed, clearly overlooked the fact that Orochimaru himself was a huge threat. Orochimaru took a few more steps closer, forcing Hisashi to lean helplessly against the iron gate of the rooftop. I can take Niji as my disciple, freeing him from the caged bird's bondage, caring for him, teaching him, and making him a ninja 10 times better than you. So, what can you offer in return, Hisashi? What can you give for your child? Cornered, Hisashi stared speechlessly at Orochimaru. His power, his taijutsu, his life all belonged to the main branch of the family, not to himself. After a long silence, Hyuga Hisashi said hoarsely, "Anything." His pure white eyes were filled with unwavering determination as he looked at Orochimaru, emphasizing again, "Any price, I can bear it all for him." "Why so serious?" Orochimaru patted Hisashi's shoulder, his cold laughter like a blade slicing through the darkness, a chilling aura seeping into Hisashi's bones. "Nothing serious, and you don't need to go through fire and water. I just want you to help me get a Fugaku." Hisashi was startled, abruptly straightening up, his kune, which had been hanging limply, now pressed against Orochimaru's neck. Orochimaru didn't care, licking the beads of blood seeping from his neck with his long tongue, and chuckled, "After all, you don't want me to send my disciple to the experimental table, do you?" Hisashi pursed his lips, glared at Orochimaru, sighed leisurely, and lowered the kune. He knew he was completely controlled by Orochimaru. Niji would pay any price for you, and all the sins would fall upon him. The Hyuga clan is divided into many branches, each with only one main branch member per generation. The entire Hyuga clan, across generations, has only a few dozen main branch members, making them rare and precious compared to the thousands of members in the branch families. It's not easy to attack the main family while the branch families are under their protection. But Orochimaru is exceptionally strong and clearly intends to pull off a quick heist without regard for consequences. Hisashi pondered this in his mind before finally speaking. "The third elder and fifth elder's branches are on good terms. They're planning a dinner gathering at the third elder's house tomorrow night, a Konoha joke." One day, the heads of the Hyuga, Senju, and Uchiha clans were competing to see whose members were more loyal. They prepared to have a member jump off a cliff to see if they would comply. An Uchiha member said, "I have a younger brother at home, I'm entrusting him to you," and prepared to jump. The Uchiha clan had hurriedly tried to stop him, but was stabbed by a clansman instead. "Don't interfere with my jump," he cried. The Senju clansman wept, "I have a younger brother at home." The Senju clan had felt this competition was inhumane and suggested changing the method. But the Hyuga clansman continued resolutely towards the cliff, and the Senju clan had quickly tried to stop him. The Hyuga clansman cried out, "Don't stop me. I have a younger brother at home." Chapter 68 Farewell, Cage? Boom. The sudden loud noise startled Hisashi Hyuga, who was lulling Hinata to sleep. The little Hinata, who had been sleepy in the cradle in front of him, began to cry. Clan head, two Jonin from the branch family knelt at the doorway. One of them said in a deep voice, "A fire has suddenly broken out in the third elder's residence, and a large number of snake-like ninja beasts have been summoned. The fate of the third and fifth elders is currently unknown. Please, clan head, take refuge, snake-like summon beasts." Orochimaru. Hisashi Hyuga's face darkened. He immediately picked up Hinata and said to the gathering branch family ninja, "Quickly go to the Hokage tower and fetch the Hokage." "Wait." Hisashi then pointed to two younger clan members and instructed them, "One of you go to the police department to report this, and the other go to inform the Ino Shikachu clan and the others. To deal with Orochimaru, Konoha must unite." Whoosh. Hyuga Hisashi, pale-faced, rushed over and knelt hurriedly before Hisashi, panting heavily. "Hisashi, why are you so slow?" Hisashi, holding the child and seated within the protective circle formed by the branch families, gave his younger brother a disapproving sidelong glance. Logically, Hisashi, the Hyuga's strongest ninja, should have been the first to arrive at his brother's side. "Niji is missing," Hisashi, lying face down, trembling, cried. "Brother, clan head, Niji is missing." Perhaps the word brother touched Hisashi's heart. He didn't scold his brother further and even arranged for several Chunin to help search for Niji. Soon, the fire in the northwest corner of the Hyuga clan territory gradually died down, but the constant stream of information from the branch families made Hisashi frown deeply. The third elder and the fifth elder, along with the other 5 main family members, were all missing, their fates unknown, and nearly 20 branch family ninja who had protected them had perished. According to reports from the branch family ninjas, Orochimaru bypassed the Hyuga patrols and hidden posts without alerting anyone, and then skillfully activated the security barrier of the third elder's residence. Because the barrier was activated, the others within the clan territory didn't react immediately, leading to the tragedy. "There's a traitor." The immovable Mountain Hisashi suspiciously scanned the branch family members guarding him, feeling that everyone was a suspect. "That bastard Orochimaru," A furious Hiruzen Sarutobi arrived, and accompanied by Hayashi ventured into the ruins of the Third Elder's residence. The 10,000 snake formation, the 4 black snake formation, the traces left were all Orochimaru's unique ninjutsu, techniques even his disciple Anko hadn't mastered. So that wicked disciple never left the village, but was hiding inside. Hiruzen Sarutobi's hunched body exuded an incredibly powerful aura and killing intent, clearly showing he truly intended to kill this worthless disciple. Third Hokage, clan head Hayashi, wearing a newly commissioned hori from the police department, Uchiha Gen arrived with a group of envious officers. Rescuing the Hyuga family members and capturing Orochimaru is of utmost urgency. The police department will fully cooperate with the Hyuga rescue. Orochimaru has been operating in the village for a long time. He must rely on his trusted confidants to continue hiding. I think Konoha needs a thorough purge. Hayashi gave Uchiha Gen a grateful look. This new Uchiha clan head was quite enthusiastic. Hiruzen Sarutobi, still furious, wholeheartedly agreed, and said in a deep voice, "Anbu, investigation department, and police department, mobilize. We must find that traitor." Thus, a massive operation to rescue the Hyuga family and find Orochimaru's accomplices began. Orochimaru had been in Konoha for 40 years, and had been a Jonin for 26. He had commanded countless battles during the Second and Third Shinobi World Wars. Almost everyone in Konoha, except for Hiruzen Sarutobi, had served under Orochimaru. Everyone was a suspect. Who was Orochimaru's accomplice? Only the police department's investigation could tell. 2 days later, at dawn, a thin mist swirled in the forests surrounding Konoha, dewdrops clung to the leaves, and the clear chirping of birds echoed through the woods. Whoosh! 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 Figures darted through the forest. The Uchiha clan leader, Uchiha Gen, was tirelessly leading a team of elite police officers, searching for traces of the snake gang. Soon, the Uchiha members following him scattered to search, and finally, near the Konoha barrier, only Uchiha Gen and a masked man in a police uniform remained. Uchiha Gen opened a small opening in the Konoha barrier and handed a burlap sack to Orochimaru. "Snake Lord, even after 1,000 miles of farewell, we must part ways. Goodbye, Clan Chief Gen, are you really going to let me take this child away?" "I won't take him as a disciple," Orochimaru hissed, flicking his tongue, and opened the sack, inside which young Hyuga Neji slept soundly. What he said while under Kido Matsukumi's control was, of course, meaningless. "Snake Lord, you?" Uchiha Gen laughed. "Snake Lord, you've done so much for me and for the Uchiha these past few days, so I'll tell you some information as payment. There's a saying circulating in the ninja world that the Sharingan originated from the Byakugan, and this saying isn't entirely wrong." "What?" Orochimaru was somewhat shocked. In his view, the Byakugan's value was at most similar to the 3-tomo Sharingan. How could it possibly be the source of the Sharingan, which also has the Mangekyō Sharingan as an upgrade module? Uchiha Gen continued, although the ninja world now regards the Sage of Six Paths as a legend and myth, those ninja sects with a longer history know that the Sage of Six Paths was a real person. And the Sage of Six Paths' mother possessed the Byakugan. The Uchiha are descendants of the Sage of Six Paths, so it's not wrong to say that the Sharingan originated from the Byakugan. The Byakugan can be said to be the foundation and source of many taijutsu in the ninja world. True powerhouses can create their own taijutsu based on it. "Are you sure you don't want this child?" Orochimaru looked at Neji sleeping soundly in the sack, his eyes filled with complex emotions. Uchiha Gen's words sounded very true, but he couldn't believe them completely. However, as long as there was even a sliver of possibility, it was worth trying. Moreover, he had given the corpses of 4 main clan members and a prisoner to Uchiha General. If he ran away without taking this brat, wouldn't he be taking the blame for nothing? Orochimaru silently slung the sack over his shoulder, walked out of the Konoha barrier, and fled towards the northern part of the Land of Fire. If it weren't for this burden, he originally planned to travel the ninja world for a few years before establishing his own ninja village. But now, to give Neji a good environment to grow up in, he felt it was better to establish a ninja village first. Raising a kid is so annoying. Looking back at Konoha hidden among the trees, Orochimaru let out a long sigh, a glint of light flashing in his snake-like eyes. "Farewell, Kage. I will definitely return, Uchiha." After Orochimaru fled, Uchiha Gen signaled to the sky, summoning the police force to return to base. On the way back to the village, Uchiha Yasuo was as talkative as ever. "These past 2 days have been awesome. From the moment the purge of the Orochimaru gang began, every ninja in the village was all smiles when they saw a police department. It's the ninja's responsibility to crack down on the Orochimaru gang. Uchiha Gen showed no awareness whatsoever of being the biggest snakehead. From now on, we must make the work of cracking down on the Snake Clan a regular and persistent effort. The 8th generation grinned, revealing 2 gleaming front teeth, and flattered, with you, clan chief, leading the way, let alone the Hokage. I'm afraid one day the entire ninja world won't be enough for the Uchiha to mess with. Uchiha Gen looked up at the crescent moon, barely visible in the morning light. There were probably very few people left on it now. If the ninja world isn't enough to mess with, one day we'll take you all to the moon. Ha 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 ha! A burst of hearty laughter rang out. Taking them to the moon, the clan chief certainly knew how to tell a joke. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69 Experiment. The Byakugan and Sharingan have completely different structures and operating principles. This is a conclusion reached by Uchiha Gen after personally dissecting and studying several members of the Hyuga main clan. Externally, the Byakugan can be transplanted and used almost without side effects, while non-Uchiha clan members cannot close the Sharingan after transplantation, and the consumption of using the Sharingan is about 10 times that of the Uchiha. Even a genius Jonin like Kakashi suffers from kidney deficiency and severe chakra depletion from a single Sharingan. The underlying reason for this stark difference lies in the fact that the Byakugan is a naturally stable Genjutsu bloodline limit, while the Sharingan, which can continuously evolve from the One-Tomo Sharingan to the Mangekyō Sharingan, is always in an unstable state. From a microscopic perspective, the Byakugan possesses a mechanism that converts ordinary chakra into ocular power, while the Sharingan does not. The ocular power chakra extracted from an Uchiha's brain cannot be converted into ordinary chakra extracted from other cells. Under this mechanism, the factors determining the strength of the Byakugan's power are far simpler and more direct than those for the Sharingan. The quality and quantity of chakra provided by the Byakugan user, the Byakugan's conversion efficiency, or in other words, its purity. That's why Byakugan confuse, and why the same Byakugan is the Tenseigan in Otsutsuki Tonari's eye socket, but regresses back to the Byakugan in Hanabi's body. Beside the operating table, Uchiha Gen, his eyes bloodshot, suppressed his excitement at discovering the truth, his gaze fixed on Hyuga Kota, who was soaking in a pale green nutrient solution. This was the only surviving member of the main branch Orochimaru had captured, a young man in his early 20s with only Chunin level strength, a useless member of the main branch. Uchiha Gen had always worried that using such a useless person as a sacrifice for his tree planting ritual would severely affect the success rate and effectiveness of the ritual. But after deeply studying the mechanism of the Byakugan, he had found a way to strengthen this sacrifice. Under the operating room lights, Uchiha Gen retrieved another pair of Byakugan. Looking at Hyuga Kota, whose eyes were tightly closed in the solution, Uchiha Gen rubbed his hands together a few times. He took out the Onigaruda technique adhesive and 2 thumb-sized pieces of chakra meridian tissue from the laboratory's cold storage. These 2 pieces of tissue were bloodline limit tissues cloned and cultivated by Orochimaru, each possessing ice release and transparent release composed of the wind and water attributes. 20 ninjutsu bloodline limits. I can't possibly transplant them all myself. It's better to transplant them to the sacrifices, and finally gather 20 ninjutsu-type bloodline limits, which can also be considered as gathering the 5 elements release, Uchiha murmured. Senju, Uzumaki, Hyuga, Kaguya, Haguramo, Uchiha, and the Hemura clan on the moon. 7 ninja clans are clearly related to the Sage of Six Paths family. So, why not, like the 9-tailed beasts, take the extreme number 9 and cultivate 9 mini divine trees, 9 ninjutsu bloodline limits each possessing Otsutsuki blood and composed of 2 of the same attribute. Then, Uchiha Gen himself would cultivate and transplant 2 more ninjutsu bloodlines, thus acquiring all ninjutsu bloodlines and all Otsutsuki bloodlines. The chakra fruits from the miniature divine trees can be eaten, and the 9 remaining mini divine trees can be used to cultivate the Uzumaki clan's secret technique, 9-faced Hasi River, imitating the Sage of Six Paths sealing the 10 tails within his body. The 9-faced Hasi River is a Uzumaki secret technique obtained from Orochimaru, capable of creating 9 semi-independent physical clones using sealing techniques. then sealing them within one's own body. Another Naruto from the movie, Uzumaki Menma, once cultivated this technique, and its power is considerable. Uchiha Gen's eyes grew brighter. On this path to godhood, he was the only traveler. Regardless of whether his ideas could be realized, he had to try first. After strapping Hyuga Kauta, who was soaking in nutrient solution, to the operating table, Uchiha Gen twisted his fingers, and 4 syringes filled with liquid appeared between them. 2 doses of high-concentration anesthetic were administered to prevent Hyuga Kauta from waking up during the experiment, and 2 doses of immunosuppressants were given to suppress his rejection reaction to the transplant. After injecting the drugs, Uchiha Gen made 2 deep incisions in the palms of Hyuga Kauta's hands. The palms are almost a part of the human body with the most nerves besides the brain, and they are also far from vital organs such as the heart. If the surgery fails, the hands can be severed in time to stop the damage and preserve important experimental materials. Susanoo. Silently, Uchiha Gen activated the eye technique of his right eye. This eye technique can control and adjust Susanoo according to Uchiha Gen's will, symbolizing the ultimate in yin release form transformation. Any technique that has the adjective ultimate is definitely not weak. Small. 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 Smaller to be usable, the Susanoo skull that emerged from Uchiha Gen's body shrank in response. With each word Uchiha Gen spoke, it shrank, quickly shrinking to the size of a palm, then a mosquito, and finally becoming so small that it was difficult to see with the naked eye. Gen Uchiha pinched the cheek of the unconscious Hyuga Kauta and tossed the shrunken Susanoo, reduced to the micrometer scale, directly into his mouth. Gundam? No. Miniature surgical robot? Yes. The Byakugan, Oni growth, ice release, and transparent release tissues were transplanted into Hyuga Kauta's body by Gen Uchiha in sequence, followed by the Susanoo's meticulous work of nerve and chakra meridian connections. The unconscious Hyuga Kauta screamed, trembling violently, saliva and tears streaming down his face. Heart rate significantly increased, exceeding 300 beats per minute, respiratory rate increased by 200%, body temperature decreased to 33 degrees Celsius, cell activity in both hands significantly improved, colorful monitoring instruments beside the operating table monitored Hyuga Kauta's various data, while Gen Uchiha focused his attention on the Susanoo within him. Through Susanoo's perception, Genji Uchiha could detect an extremely severe rejection reaction in Hyuga Kauta's chakra meridians after they connected with the Byakugan and the bloodline limits of the 2 ninjutsu, a reaction that even the Oni growth technique couldn't suppress. Genji's gaze sharpened, preparing to sever Hyuga Kauta's hands. In the midst of extreme pain, Hyuga Kauta seemed to regain some consciousness, instinctively activating his ocular power, his pure white pupils suddenly contracting. An exceptionally pure ocular chakra flowed from his eyes, flowing along the chakra meridians into his hands. On the monitoring equipment, Hyuga Kauta's various data quickly returned to stability, and eyelid-like tissues grew on either side of the Byakugan transplanted into his palms, naturally closing the Byakugan. In the microscopic world, under the observation of Susanoo, this change was even more astonishing. The ice release and transparent release tissues that had been scanned by Kauta's eye power instantly lost their rejection reaction. The entire tissue twisted wildly, sprouting countless fleshy buds that frantically burrowed into Hyuga Kauta's chakra network, completely merging with it. Within just a few minutes, Hyuga Kauta returned to his original form, with only a slightly pink mark remaining on the palms of his hands. Chapter 70 War? Uchiha Gen pursed his lips. Orochimaru had previously tried to clone the Uchiha clan, but the clones all turned out to be bizarre monsters. His final conclusion was that the snakes of Raichi Cave were genetically closer to humans than the Uchiha. Hyuga Kauta's transformation seemed to prove this point, although these 6 paths bloodline descendants of the Uchiha clan appeared no different from humans and could interbreed with ninjas to produce offspring. They were fundamentally different from ninjas. What human could grow eyelids on their palm in 3 minutes? Soon, the transformation in Hyuga Kauta's body came to an end. From the perspective of Susanoo, the ice release and transparent release cells in Hyuga Kauta's chakra meridians had completely spread, primarily using Hyuga Kauta's original chakra meridian cells, and had completed their fusion. This meant that Hyuga Kauta had gained the ability to extract ice release and transparent release chakra, becoming a rare triple bloodline ninja. Meanwhile, Susanoo could observe that Hyuga Kauta's own Byakugan seemed to have established some kind of connection with the Byakugan transplanted into his body. The Byakugan in Hyuga Kouta's palm was slowly refining ocular chakra, but 7 or 8/10 of the extracted ocular chakra flowed through the chakra channels to Hyuga Kouta's own Byakugan. If this continued for a long time, the Byakugan in Hyuga Kouta's palm would probably gradually atrophy and die, becoming nourishment for Hyuga Kouta's own Byakugan. Just as I expected, retracting Susanoo, Uchiha Gen opened Hyuga Kouta's eyes with his hand, examining his increasingly pure white pupils and nodding. Having 2 or more Sharingan on one's body wouldn't benefit the Uchiha's ocular power, because the special brain cells used by the Uchiha to refine ocular chakra were limited. But each additional Byakugan in the Hyuga's body meant one more ocular power extraction factory within his body. Perhaps at some point in history, the Hyuga clans must have viewed each other as sustenance to enhance their power, leading to extremely severe internal strife that resulted in powerful internal control measures like the caged bird seal and the mane and branch families. After a moment of conjecture, Uchiha Gen picked up the data recorded by the monitoring equipment and began reviewing and organizing the information while tidying up the lab table. Knock knock. Clang, a rapid knocking sounded at the lab door, accompanied by Shisu's faint shout, "Brother Gen. Something terrible has happened, wait a moment, I'll be right there." Uchiha Gen washed his hands, pressed the automatic sterilization button on the lab table, and turned to open the door for Shisu. "Right, to be safe, the dosage of the anesthetic needs to be increased." Uchiha Gen, who had taken 2 steps, suddenly stopped, returned to the lab table, injected Hyuga Kouta's arm with 2 more anesthetic injections, then carried him to immerse him in the nutrient solution and put a breathing mask on him. After the transplant, Hyuga Kouta's body would inevitably undergo a leap in enhancement. They couldn't afford to let the experimental subject escape due to carelessness, like in some movies. Uchiha Gen carefully checked the equipment, then tripled the concentration of anesthetic gas in Hyuga Kouta's ventilator before slowly walking out of the laboratory. As soon as he left, Shisu, his face filled with anxiety, launched into a rapid-fire explanation. The village suffered a major defeat on the northern front. Jiraiya-sama was injured by the 8-tails Jinchuriki, and Kumagakure has pushed the battle line to the vicinity of the original northern command post. There's also unusual activity in Iwagakure. Inoki has convened a meeting of the village's jonin, indicating an intention to gather forces and advance south. Shisu was somewhat agitated. He had thought peace was near, but in an instant, the situation had changed dramatically, and the shadow of war once again loomed over Konoha. Uchiha Gen leaned against the laboratory door, deep in thought, patiently listening to Shisu's account. The Third Shinobi World War began 6 years ago with the disappearance of the Third Kazakage, and the 5 great nations subsequently joined the war. After years of fierce fighting, Sunagakure, with the weakest foundation, was the first to be drained of its strength by Orochimaru and withdrew from the battlefield to recuperate in the desert. Iwagakure, after its crushing defeat at Kanobi Bridge, shifted to a strategic defensive posture, only engaging in war with Kumagakure, who sought revenge for the Third Raikage. In the past 2 years, due to the heavy losses suffered by all villages, people longed for peace, and the intensity of the war gradually decreased. Kirigakure also completely withdrew from the ninja war. The next step should have been for the war to end completely within 1 or 2 years, with everyone returning home to recuperate. As Shisu narrated, Uchiha Gen quickly understood why history had deviated from the plot. On the night of the Nine-Tails attack, Konoha lost 2 top-tier fighters, Minato and the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, along with countless other losses. The mature and prudent Inoki tolerated it. During the Monster and Seven-Tails rampage, Konoha reportedly suffered little damage, with only 100 or so casualties. Inoki tolerated it again. However, after half a month of chaos, Konoha issued S-rank arrest warrants for Shimura Danzo and Orochimaru to the ninja world, and Inoki could no longer hold back. Konoha was missing 4 cage-level shinobi, leaving it weaker than ever before. Wouldn't it be foolish not to go all in at this point? The collapse of the Kumagakure front can also be attributed to this. The Kumagakure command in this war was Tsuchide, the Raikage's secretary, but Killer B, the 8-tails Jinchuriki, also went to war. Konoha's propaganda consistently claimed that the 4th Hokage fought 2 against 1, not losing to the Kumagakure Abi duo. This was certainly true. Abi was no match for Minato's Flying Thunder God technique. But Kumagakure's claim that any one of the Abi duo could fight the 4th Hokage without being at a disadvantage was also plausible. Minato's Rasengan was enough to kill ordinary Jonin, but against the 4th Hokage, who knew lightning release chakra mode, and Killer B, who had a tailed beast cloak. The Rasengan was just a quick bath. Orochimaru's defection, as his best friend, Jiraiya couldn't wait to abandon the war and pursue him. In his haste, his fighting style became somewhat reckless, and he underestimated Killer B's strength as a perfect Jinchuriki, getting injured before even activating Sage Mode. Without Jiraiya restraining Killer B, Konoha suffered a crushing defeat due to the Jinchuriki's destructive power, forced to trade space for time. I understand, don't panic. I'm here. Uchiha Gen frowned slightly, reassuring Shisui, then casually ripped off his lab coat and headed out of the laboratory. What's going on in the village right now? The third Hokage is having a small meeting with two elders. It's been over an hour. Stepping out of the underground laboratory, Uchiha Gen was about to summon the Jonin from the various squads of the police department when he suddenly looked up. Chirp chirp chirp, several ninja hawks scattered from the direction of the Hokage building, their mournful cries echoing across Konoha's skies. This is the signal for an emergency Jonin meeting at the Hokage building. War is truly on the horizon. An Naruto-themed joke, Uchiha Sasuke was very unpopular. None of his family members attended his wedding. Chapter 71 Commander. What exactly is a ninja? Sitting at the head of the meeting room, awaiting the gathering of the Jonin, Hiruzen Sarutobi subconsciously picked up his pipe, took out a lighter, lit the tobacco, and took a deep drag. Perhaps it was because of the deaths of his successor, his wife, and his most beloved disciple within a short year, that Hiruzen had been somewhat melancholic lately. His teacher, Tobirama, said that a ninja is someone with a knife in their heart, representing the need for ruthlessness and suppression of emotions. Jiraiya believed a ninja was someone who endured everything, Orochimaru thought a ninja was someone who could use ninjutsu. Perceptions of ninjas varied widely, and it seemed everyone's view had some merit. But in Hiruzen's view, a ninja was simply a human, capable of joy, anger, sorrow, and happiness, experiencing birth, aging, sickness, and death. This was also the reason he harbored a deep-seated resentment towards the Uchiha. The Uchiha's emotions were too intense, their thinking too bizarre, and their Sharingan was beyond human comprehension. The Uchiha were somewhat inhuman. The first and second Hokage, they both died around my age, didn't they? Hiruzen Sarutobi paused, his aged face showing a mixture of weariness and sorrow, his emotions complex. Clang, clang. The meeting room door creaked strangely. The sudden noise interrupted Hiruzen's reverie. He knew without turning around that only the arrogant Uchiha clan would enter the meeting room like that. Other Jonin always entered silently and closed the door behind them. Clan Chief Minamoto, you've arrived. Please have a seat. Hiruzen nodded to the radiant Uchiha Minamoto, offering a gentle and kind smile. This smile was far more genuine than his usual polite, fake one. Normally, the Konoha High Command, plagued by Madara-phobia and Uchiha persecution complex, spared no effort in restricting and suppressing the Uchiha. But when it really came down to a crisis, Hiruzen Sarutobi knew who was more capable. Sorry I'm a little late. Seeing that nearly 100 people were already scattered throughout the meeting room, Genji Uchiha smiled apologetically and led his 20-odd followers to occupy a corner of the room. Don't be fooled by the fact that during the Fourth Shinobi World War, when cage-level ninjas were as common as dogs and Jonin were gods, Jonin were practically non-existent. The Jonin of the 5 great shinobi villages were actually close to the top of the ninja world's pyramid. The 5 great villages combined had only about 1,000 Jonin. Any one of them could easily be a leader in a small village or organization. The Uchiha arrived late, and then another 20 or 30 people came, bringing the total to over 150, basically all the Jonin Konoha currently had, excluding those on the northern front. This also demonstrates the strength of the Uchiha. Even with various restrictions from the higher-ups, the Uchiha's Jonin still accounted for more than 1/10 of Konoha's total Jonin population. Moreover, it's common knowledge that in a one-on-one fight, one must flee, and it takes at least 2 Jonin to withstand an Uchiha. But, given the current situation, I have no choice but to rely on Uchiha Genji. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed inwardly. In the ninja world, where individual strength can influence the outcome of war, the commander of a large army must be a top-tier expert, or, like in Mangekyō, commanded by Tsuchiri, with Jinchuriki providing support. Hiruzen Sarutobi also wanted his son, Shinosuke Sarutobi, to lead the army. But if he dared to let Shinosuke lead the army against Iwagakure, Inoki would dare to pull off a heroic Inoki storms the camp, while cowardly Sarutobi dies by dust release. Minato and his wife died, Orochimaru and Danzo defected. Tsunade was traveling the ninja world, and only a handful of people in Konoha knew that she now suffered from hemophobia and was unable to fight. Hamura Mitakato, at his peak 10 years ago, could be considered a cage-level gatekeeper, capable of going toe-to-toe with top-tier experts, but now he was useless. Currently, Konoha only has Hirozen Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Uchiha Genji, who has awakened the Mangekyō Sharingan, as truly formidable fighters. They have no choice but to use them. But they can't let Uchiha Genji lead an entire front alone. Hirozen Sarutobi roused himself, his gaze sharpening. He picked up the intelligence report on the table and proclaimed loudly, Iwagakure is amassing troops to march south, and Kumagakure is also showing signs of reinforcements. War is imminent. Konoha yearns for peace, but our determination to defend our homeland, protect our village, and our comrades is no less than anyone else's. Hirozen Sarutobi delivered his speech on stage, while the Jonin below all wore solemn expressions and gloomy faces, except for the Uchiha members playing in the corner, who looked on with eager anticipation. Delighted at the prospect of war, typical Uchiha. Hirozen Sarutobi's lips twitched uncontrollably. He quickened his inspiring speech, then stood up and began assigning tasks. On the northern front, we plan to reinforce with 3,000 troops to defend the border between the Land of Hot Springs and the Land of Fire, supporting Jiraiya's retreating forces. Yes, that's right. Although they lost a battle on the northern front, and the Konoha army retreated over 100 miles, they only lost territory in the Land of Hot Springs. Jiraiya's forces were merely driven from central to southern Konoha by the Hidden Cloud Village. As for why the Hidden Cloud Village's invasion of the Land of Hot Springs is called an attack on Konoha, and why Konoha is waging a territorial defense war or a self-defense counterattack on the territory of the Land of Hot Springs, fighting within their own country would be too costly and disruptive to the lives of their citizens. Keeping these small countries around is precisely for use as battlefields and strategic buffers. Each company commander of the support force will be a Jonin. The specific list is as follows: Nara Izumi, Uchiha Yatsuho, Uchiha Inayasa, Hyuga Iroha, Uchiha. As they listened, the Jonin all realized what was going on. The support force consisted of 30 Jonin, with over a dozen from the Uchiha clan. This clearly meant that the Uchiha clan was to lead this support force. So, the commander of this support force should be Uchiha General sitting in the first row. Jonin squad leader Nara Shikoku frowned slightly, scratching his pineapple-shaped hair. Sending Uchiha Gen to the northern front, does that mean the third Hokage? The supreme commander of the support force will be Police Chief Uchiha Gen. Sure enough, Hirozen Sarutobi stood up and handed the prepared appointment letter to Uchiha Gen, signifying that he was entrusting the entire operation of the support force to him. Gen, victory is assured. Konoha will win. Uchiha Gen accepted the appointment letter without hesitation, his face beaming with confidence. Confidence is contagious. In an instant, the somewhat oppressive atmosphere in the meeting room, caused by the war, vanished. Did these Jonin, who had witnessed Uchiha Gen's complete annihilation of the Seven Tails, not know whether he was capable or not? Alright, seeing that everyone's emotions had been stirred up, Hirozen Sarutobi tore off his embroidered auspicious cloud robe, revealing his black ninja uniform and ninja tool pouch underneath. With a determined look in his eyes, he delivered another inspiring message. From now on, Elder Mitakato Hamura, the Hokage advisor, will temporarily assume the position of Hokage. I will personally lead the troops to the battlefield in the Land of Grass. Konoha will prevail. Chapter 72 Cosplay. War is never something that can be started on a whim. It takes several days for an army to assemble, prepare, and set off. During these days, Uchiha Gen carefully arranged the subsequent work of the police department, processed some experimental data, and then, on the afternoon before the army's departure, arrived at the outside of a quaint and imposing mansion. Under the cherry blossom trees outside the mansion hung two exquisite wooden plaques, Fugaku and Mikado, indicating the identities of the mansion's owners. Several clumps of flowers and plants, clearly meticulously trimmed and tended, swayed gently in the breeze. The gate was half open, leading to a wooden veranda, flanked by rocks and a clear spring that meandered around the veranda to the front yard, winding through bamboo and rocks before converging into a pond. Uchiha Gen lightly knocked on the door knocker twice and then walked straight inside. It's Genji. The sliding door at the end of the corridor suddenly opened, revealing Uchiha Fugaku's somewhat sinister face, but this famous fierce-eyed man had none of the imposing aura of a powerful figure. A large floral cloth was tied around his chest, with a cotton cushion inside. Inside, A small, chubby-faced child clutched Fugaku's collar with his pink little hands, staring wide-eyed at Uchiha Genji. "It's not brother." The little boy wrinkled his nose in grievance, his eyes instantly becoming watery. "Sasuke, be good. Brother's on a mission, he'll be back tomorrow." Fugaku gently rocked Sasuke in his arms, coaxing him tenderly. "Sasuke, you should call this Uncle Genji." "Uncle." Uchiha Sasuke turned his head away shyly, burying his face in his father's arms. Uchiha Genji followed Fugaku into the entrance hall, took off his shoes, and stepped onto the tatami mats in the Fugaku family home. "Is this Sasuke? He looks a lot like Mikado. He'll definitely be a handsome guy when he grows up." Sitting on the futon, Uchiha Gen carefully examined Sasuke, who was crawling around on the table that Fugaku had placed there. Suddenly, he reached out. A sneak attack. I flicked. Uchiha Gen lightly flicked Sasuke's crotch, causing Sasuke to roll over in dissatisfaction. "Ha ha ha ha. Just a mere reincarnation of Indra, easily suppressed by me, Uchiha General. I can flick him however I want." Sasuke is the reincarnation of Indra, and Madara is also the reincarnation of Indra. So, flicking Sasuke is like flicking Madara, isn't it? This is too exciting. Uchiha Gen grabbed Sasuke and hugged him tightly, teasing and playing with him in various ways. "Gen, what do you want?" Fugaku came over with a teapot and 2 teacups, finally rescuing Sasuke from Uchiha Gen's clutches. Steam rose from the teacups, and green tea leaves rose and fell within them. Uchiha Gen took a sip of hot tea and cut to the chase. "Fugaku, come with me to the Cloud Village battlefield. When we get back, how about becoming a squad leader?" "Gen, you want to reinstate me, the former clan head? Aren't you afraid I'll restore my power?" Uchiha Fugaku gently stroked Sasuke's forehead, looking at Uchiha Gen with a puzzled expression. "Don't think so much, a true Uchiha only needs a glance to understand the other's thoughts." Uchiha Gen then played with Sasuke's chubby little hand. "How many clan members do you think will respond if you raise your voice now? What do I have to be afraid of?" Fugaku pondered for a moment, then smiled bitterly. Indeed. Putting aside a difference in strength, Uchiha Gen was far more successful as clan head than he was, securing many benefits for the clan and the police department. Even his former confidant, the 8th Hokage, probably wouldn't support him anymore. After a moment's thought, Uchiha Fugaku nodded. As a retired clan leader, he had always lived a secluded life at home. The dignified Fiercei spent his days cooking and changing Sasuke's diapers, which he actually enjoyed. However, the Uchiha's innate bloodlust and violent genes remained unfulfilled, causing him some frustration. "Yes, clan leader Minamoto, haha, then I'll wait for a Fiercei to shine again on the battlefield." After finishing their business, Uchiha Minamoto's eyes darted around, and he couldn't suppress his smile. "Fugaku, would you like to let Sasuke try on women's clothing?" "Women's clothing?" The rule-abiding Fugaku was somewhat bewildered. "Yes, such a cute boy, of course he should wear women's clothing. Now, while he's still young, we can keep him memento." Fugaku was gradually persuaded. Sasuke, sucking his thumb like a pacifier, looked at the 2 adults with a blank expression, completely unaware of what was about to happen. In the evening, Uchiha Minamoto bid farewell to Sasuke and his father after leaving a high-end photography studio. Both Fugaku and Minamoto carried a thick stack of photos. Maids, Lolita fashion, cat ears. This photography studio has a pretty complete selection of outfits. These photos must be carefully preserved. They can be used as props for Sasuke's shame-based eye awakening technique when he grows up. Uchiha Gen smiled brightly. He was doing all this for his nephew. Clan leader, I finally found you." The elderly Uchiha Susanoo ran breathlessly to Uchiha Gen's side. "What urgent matter has made you come all this way to me?" Uchiha Gen asked, somewhat puzzled. Susanoo blushed slightly, stammering, "Clan leader, aren't you going to the battlefield? My old buddies and I got you some clothes." Uchiha Gen, who had just recorded Sasuke's embarrassing moments, misunderstood. "Actually, it's a layered armor." Uchiha Susanoo rubbed his hands together, solemnly opening a storage scroll. Bang! A suit of armor, as red as blood, appeared out of thin air and was held in Uchiha Susanoo's hands as if it were a precious treasure. Uchiha Gen gently tapped the armor, and to his surprise, the sound was not heavy like that of iron armor, but rather somewhat crisp. Century-old red ironwood, it's tougher than iron, and its elasticity is just as good, plus it's lighter, so it won't hinder movement. A look of reminiscence appeared on Uchiha Susanoo's face as she sighed. The technology now is much better than in the Warring States period. I specially found the best ninja craftsmen in the land of craftsmen, and the comfort level is definitely better than current ninja uniforms. Please try it on. Uchiha Susanoo looked at Uchiha Gen expectantly, her tone even pleading. I just let Sasuke finish cosplaying, and now you want me to do it too. Uchiha Gen rubbed his temples, unable to refuse Susanoo's pleading. Besides, he also thought the Uchiha's crimson armor looked better than the Konoha's green vests. For him, the armor offered no benefit whatsoever, he'd rather choose something cool. Alright, Uchiha Gen accepted the crimson armor, nodding somewhat helplessly. I'll wear it when I go to war, Flame Fan. Uchiha Susanoo, taking advantage of the situation, pointed to a small slot on the back of the crimson armor with some pride, saying, remember to wear the Flame Fan too, the slot is here. Oh, and the lining should ideally be black. Seeing Uchiha Susanoo's childlike excitement, Uchiha Gen agreed to everything, and soon a set of Madara-style dance attire appeared in his hand. A smile gradually appeared on Uchiha Gen's lips. At the pinnacle of dance, reigning supreme, it's time to give the ninja world a taste of Uchiha dance. The Hokage of each generation were traveling by train. Suddenly, the train stopped. The second Hokage stuck his head out of the window and roared, "Evil Uchiha!" The train didn't move. The third Hokage said, "Why don't you draw the curtains, sit in your seat, and rock your body to make it look like the train is still moving?" The train still didn't move. The seventh Hokage snapped his fingers lightly and said, "Don't underestimate the bond between us." The train started moving. Chapter 73 The Land of Hot Springs. The Land of Hot Springs, a country with 7 mountains, 3 rivers, and no fields, is renowned in the ninja world for its numerous hot springs and thriving tourism industry. The local ninja village, Hot Spring Village, is known as the village that has forgotten war, its low combat strength being self-evident. Hazuki Mangetsu, naturally fond of water, has been hiding and mingling in these hot springs since his defection, but a group of mysterious people have been silently tracking him. Today, he was finally caught red-handed at a wild mountain spring. Shinra Tensei, a deafening roar shook the entire valley, stones flew through the air, and the earth trembled. Amidst this whirling dust, an orange-haired man dressed in a black robe adorned with numerous black nose studs slowly emerged. The hidden mist prodigy, Hazuki Mangetsu, the orange-haired man surveyed the rock-filled spring with his strange, wavy purple eyes, his face expressionless. "I am Pain, and we are here to accept you as a member of Akatsuki." Cough cough. The spring water surged, and Mangetsu, who had dodged Pain's attack using a water transformation technique, emerged halfway out of the water, staring at Pain in horror. The mountains had been razed to the ground with overwhelming force. This power, comparable to a tailed beast ball, seemed to be nothing more than a casual strike from Pain. Akatsuki, gripping Hiramakari tightly in his hands, Hazuki Mangetsu searched for an opportunity to strike while stalling. "I have no intention of joining any organization, an organization that exists to achieve true peace." Zetsu slowly emerged from a nearby tree, White Zetsu giving Mangetsu a flippant smile. "Whether you have any ideas or not, you must join Akatsuki. Under the power of a god, there is no room for you to resist." "A god?" Mangetsu glanced at Pain's eyes out of the corner of his eye. There were rings of eye markings within the purple sclera. He'd noticed this since earlier. The Hazuki clan, a ninja clan with a history spanning hundreds of years, was naturally not as ignorant as ordinary ninjas. Pain's eyes did resemble those of the Sage of Six Paths in ancient paintings. "The Rinnegan, that's right." A clear, cold female voice suddenly rang out, and sheets of white paper appeared out of thin air, eventually transforming into a blue-haired woman with flowers in her hair, blocking Mangetsu's escape route. "Akatsuki recruits S-rank rogue ninjas from the ninja world, and Pain, possessing the power of the Rinnegan, will protect you." Hazuki Mangetsu's heart stirred at the organization that recruited S-rank rogue ninjas, recalling the instructions given by the Mizukage's secretary, Gen, when he left Garigakure. Possessing the Rinnegan and recruiting S-rank rogue ninjas from various villages, there must be a grand conspiracy to overthrow the ninja world. "Then, I join." Hazuki Mangetsu's expression suddenly changed, and he sheathed his Hiramakari. Pain lowered his raised hand, took out a ring, a thin book, and a small bottle from his pocket, and tossed them to Hazuki Mangetsu, slowly saying, "Very good, then from today onwards, you are one of Akatsuki's 3 members. This ring is a symbol of being a formal member of Akatsuki, and the book contains several ninjutsu that you need to master. As for the uniform, You'll get it later. And what about this little bottle? Hazuki Mangetsu carefully held the bottle, guessing the purpose of the purple liquid inside. A poison to control people? Some kind of stimulant to unleash potential? Or, that's nail polish. The woman with light blue hair frowned, her voice cold. Use it without worry, it's waterproof. All Akatsuki members have to wear it as our organization's symbol. What kind of organization is this? Hazuki Mangetsu's face darkened, and he nodded wearily. I'll take you to the nearest Akatsuki base. Pain nodded calmly, and then disappeared from Hazuki Mangetsu's sight with Konan. More than 10 miles away, in a tree hollow constructed using paper-style techniques, a man with dry, brittle hair and a gaunt face let out a soft breath, pushed his wheelchair forward, and looked directly at the godlike Pain before him. Yohiko, you will always be the leader of Akatsuki. Nagato, don't blame yourself too much, it's not your fault. Konan emerged from the darkness, placed her hand on Nagato's shoulder, and gazed intently at Yohiko's face, saying, back then, we, Akatsuki, were all too naive. I am the god who will guide the world to peace, but the path to peace is fraught with hardship. Therefore, rather than sacrificing those idealists, those good people who pursue peace, it is better to use these wicked, blood-stained rogue ninja as offerings for the arrival of peace. Nagato's voice was weak, but incredibly firm. Kakuzu, Sasori, Mangetsu, next, let's recruit Orochimaru and Shimura Danzo, at the border between the land of fire and the land of hot water. Dusk was falling, and the evening glow filled the air. Countless dark figures darted through the gaps in the tree trunks and branches, startling the birds and beasts in the forest. Suddenly, the earth seemed to tremble, and the Konoha army halted instantly, dispersing into the woods to conceal themselves and scout the surroundings. Uchiha Gen lightly patted the rear of the white ninja cat beneath him. Meow. Rain leaped swiftly through the forest, quickly landing on a treetop, allowing Uchiha Gen to gaze into the distance. Was it an earthquake or some powerful ninjutsu? The southern part of the land of hot springs should still be under Konoha's control. Could it be that Jiraiya had died, allowing the Cloud Village to advance unimpeded? Saltwater, order all units to set up camp on the spot and construct defensive and warning facilities. Fugaku, dispatch an elite 100-man squad to accompany me to the front to scout the situation. Nara Saltwater frowned slightly upon hearing this, his expression somewhat worried. Worrying about defeat before victory, given the possibility of Jiraiya's unit collapsing, Uchiha Gen's decision to set up camp on the spot was absolutely correct, but was Uchiha Gen, the commander-in-chief, going to do the work of the vanguard? Seeing Uchiha Gen's resolute expression, Nara Shizuku had no choice but to comply. Soon, the main force of the support troops was stationed on the border of the land of fire, while 100 or so dark figures hurried towards the northern part of the land of hot water. The following night was an uneventful journey of several hundred miles. Along the way, Uchiha Gen did not encounter the routed soldiers from the front lines as he had predicted. It wasn't until he was about 100 miles from the northern battlefield that he encountered a reconnaissance team led by a Hyuga special Jonin. So, the northern battlefield is peaceful, but 2 mountains nearby collapsed. After exchanging information with the reconnaissance team, Uchiha Gen finally breathed a sigh of relief, telling the ninjas who had been traveling all night to rest and recuperate. Yo yo yo, strange music echoed through the forest. A man wearing sunglasses skipped and hopped through the woods, suddenly leaping onto a small hill near Uchiha Gen and his group. He gestured wildly, pointing at the crowd. 2 peaks destroyed, Hitachi, come and surround them. As expected of Konoha brats, they knocked the peaks down. Oh yeah. Perfect rap, Hitachi-sama. An elite force from Kumagakure rushed over and gathered around the hill, facing off against the Konoha troops. Looks like we're in luck, Uchiha Gen smiled, chuckling as he teased Fugaku beside him. A red glint flashed into his crimson Sharingan eyes, perfectly complementing his scarlet armor. Chapter 74 Killer Bee. Yo-yo, don't be afraid, Uchiha brats. I don't even need to transform into my tailed beast form to beat you all. I'll have you lying on my feet in no time. Killer Bee, atop the hill, launched into an impromptu rap with even more flamboyant dance moves, then vanished from his spot, instantly charging into the Konoha ninja ranks. Supersonic thunderclap blade, a burst of lightning chakra instantly enveloped the ninja sword in Killer Bee's hand. Clang. Uchiha Gen drew his sword to block Killer Bee, a flash of red light in his eyes. In a split second, he crouched back half a step and kicked Killer Bee in the chest, sending the 8-tails Jinchuriki flying. As Killer Bee tumbled through the air, A red chakra cloak emerged from his body. The materialized chakra, like ropes, wrapped around two trees, instantly bouncing Killer Bee back. Killer Bee spun several times in the air, his body instantly covered with 7 ninja swords, spinning wildly like a hedgehog, his swords raining down on Uchiha General. The Cloud Village ninjas also sprang into action, engaging the Konoha ninjas led by Uchiha Gen in battle. Clang! 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 The sounds of clashing blades rang out incessantly. Killer Bee's ninja swords moved like acrobats, yet he wielded them with remarkable agility. Uchiha Gen's Sharingan darted back and forth, intently watching the flying swords, deflecting countless attacks, but he was inevitably being constantly suppressed. How? With a cold snort, Uchiha Gen, to Killer Bee's astonishment, discarded his swords. His right hand, seemingly appearing out of nowhere, bypassed Killer Bee's dense web of swords, blocking one of Killer Bee's hands. Uchiha Gen wasn't some kind of genius. He had no intention of competing with the Raikijin lightning release or with Killer Bee in swordsmanship. After blocking Killer Bee's attack with one hand, he used Killer Bee's hand to form a tiger hand seal. Fire release, great fireball technique. This technique normally misses, but when hand in hand and face to face, the hit rate jumps from 0.01% to 100%. A massive fireball slammed directly into Killer Bee, but Uchiha Gen used the recoil to gracefully flip in midair and land lightly on the ground. Boom! Amidst the raging flames, Killer Bee's tails unfurled and spun wildly, dispersing Uchiha Gen's fire release technique. Enveloped in tailed beast chakra, Killer Bee adjusted his sunglasses and struck a pose. This kind of attack is no match for 8 Tails Killer Bee. Yay! Uchiha Gen's eyes turned cold. Showing off in front of the Uchiha? Do you have a license? Who gave you that right? A red light flashed in his Sharingan, the pattern in his eyes transforming into kaleidoscope shape. B, lower your head. Don't look into his eyes. A heavy, booming voice suddenly echoed in Killer Bee's mind. Although confused, Killer Bee, as a perfect Jinchuriki, trusted the 8 Tails Gyuki within him and lowered his head in response. Sharingan Genjutsu? Ushima, can't you just dispel it for me? Ordinary Genjutsu is no problem, but Mangekyō Sharingan Genjutsu might be too late. The 8 Tails warned Killer Bee with an unprecedentedly stern tone. That kid over there has awakened the Uchiha clan's Mangekyō Sharingan. That's a terrifying power capable of rivaling, even defeating, and controlling us tailed beasts. It originated from the old man. Anyway, you better be careful. Killer Bee's expression hardened as he scanned his surroundings, his face grim. The group led by Uchiha Gen were either Uchiha or elites from various ninja clans, and in a short time, they had completely suppressed his Cloud Village. If he couldn't quickly defeat Uchiha Gen, these Cloud Village ninjas would probably all die. Daru, fire the signal flare. Requesting backup, the fiercely competitive Killer Bee responsibly shouted to lazy-looking, dejected-looking boy, then lunged towards Uchiha General. He was absolutely confident that even the Mangekyō Sharingan was no match for Killer Bee. Half-tailed beast transformed Killer Bee swung his chakra tail, hurtling towards Uchiha Gen at incredible speed. The resulting gust of wind and dust forced the other ninjas in the melee to retreat from the battlefield. Boom! A deafening roar echoed through the sky, the shockwaves spreading outwards like ripples. But Uchiha Gen stood motionless. A massive skeletal arm blocked Killer Bee's attack, grabbing his chakra tail and throwing him away. Then, the skeletal hand clenched its fist, raised a thumb, and slowly tilted back, thumb pointing towards the ground. The damage wasn't high, but the insult was immense. Damn it! The mocked Killer Bee cursed angrily, glaring resentfully at Uchiha General. You dare glare at me? Don't you know I can use genjutsu? Uchiha Gen, of course, wouldn't miss this opportunity. His eyes met Killer Bee's unintentionally, and his eye power instantly poured out, illusory Sharingan. His eye power shattered Killer Bee's mental defenses with overwhelming force, directly penetrating the depths of his consciousness to probe the 8 Tails. Damn Sharingan! In the dim light, Uchiha Gen seemed to hear a low growl of a wild beast. One of Killer Bee's chakra tails transformed into an octopus tentacle, and Killer Bee immediately broke free from the genjutsu. The perfect Jinchuriki is indeed extraordinary. Looks like I'll have to put in some effort. Uchiha Gen wasn't surprised. Looking at the formidable Killer Bee, a smile curled at the corner of his mouth, and he solemnly clasped his hands together. I am Uchiha Gen. Remember this name that will bring you defeat. To be defeated by my hand is your glory, Susanoo. Actually, this technique doesn't require hand seals, But Uchiha Gen still symbolically clasped his hands together, paying homage to the ninja god who inspired him. Majestic armor, Susanoo, six-armed Mangekyō. Uchiha Gen's own Susanoo was a glossy black, so he named this form after the legendary great black god Mangekyō, a symbol of destruction. Strands of violent yin release chakra swirled around Uchiha Gen, the surging, materialized chakra constantly expanding and compressing, finally forming a humanoid armor about 2 meters tall, completely enveloping him. Susanoo's ultimate yin release manipulation ability continuously adjusted the armor's shape, making it increasingly refined. Uchiha Gen wore a black, dotted helmet with 2 short, foot-long tassels on top, a goose feather lion face armor, dragon head shoulder guards on both sides, a ferocious demon head armor belt around his waist, and thick-soled dragon scale boots. 6 thick, long arms suddenly sprouted from his back, tightly wrapped in layers of armor plates, gleaming black light, exuding a chilling aura. This looks even more powerful than Big Brother's lightning release armor. Killer Bee's eyes widened as he stared at Uchiha Gen's transformed Susanoo. Looks are everything, even without a fight. Killer Bee knew this cool ninjutsu was incredibly strong. The imposing Uchiha Gen looked over, his eyes flashing with a chilling red light, and took a step towards Killer Bee. Killer Bee instinctively took half a step back, then angrily charged forward a few steps, his expression serious as he looked at the godlike Uchiha Gen. Roll. That's enough, warm up. Uchiha Gen's lips curled into a smile, arms crossed, his index finger lightly hooking towards Killer Bee, a playful glint in his eyes. I'll give you a two-handed handicap, how about it? Chapter 75 Grilled Octopus. Lightning Plow Blade. A burst of lightning erupted from Killer Bee's half-tailed beast form, his light yellow hair standing on end with a crackling sound, giving him a touch of the aura of a super ninja. The next moment, his figure vanished from the spot. His lightning release chakra mode wasn't nearly as refined as his sworn brother, the fourth Hokage, but with the added power of half-tailed beast transformation, he was only slightly slower, and his destructive power surpassed even the fourth Hokage. Killer Bee clasped his hands together, his left arm resting on his right, and slammed his right elbow down on Uchiha Gen's head. Boom! An explosive roar echoed through the heavens and earth, the ground beneath his feet trembling. Uchiha Gen remained with his arms crossed, but the 6 Susanoo arms behind him seemed to cross themselves, blocking Killer Bee's seemingly inevitable attack. Then, the 6 arms grabbed the materialized 8 tails chakra on Killer Bee's body, raised it high, and slammed it heavily into the ground. Roar! With a roar, Killer Bee's tailed beast chakra surged even larger, its tails intertwining behind him to cushion the impact. Bang! Killer Bee slammed to the ground, the shockwave creating a massive dust explosion that uprooted 7 or 8 trees in the surrounding forest. Uchiha Gen stood motionless, looking down at Killer Bee in the crater, casually remarking, "Tailed beast transformation is tailed beast transformation, lightning release chakra mode is lightning release chakra mode, why always mix them up? It's a mess." HMPH, Killer Bee clutched his chest, a trickle of blood slowly seeping from the corner of his mouth, his expression extremely grave. In his own experience, Uchiha Gen's strange chakra armor was even harder than the fourth Hokage's lightning release armor, only slightly weaker than his adoptive father. The third Hokage ordinary ninjutsu and taijutsu definitely can't break through his defenses. Killer Bee clenched his fists. Boom! Uchiha Gen leaped into the pit, spiderweb-like cracks spreading beneath his feet, a shockwave rippling outwards. His 6 thick, powerful Susanoo arms clenched into fists, tearing through the air with a thunderous roar, crashing down on Killer Bee like a raging storm. Countless black fist shadows layered upon each other, like a black cloud, countless enormous bluish-black fists filling Killer Bee's entire field of vision. He saw the shattered 8 tails chakra dissipate before his eyes, feeling a sudden, intense pain in his sternum as if it would pierce and shatter his entire body. Then came the resounding boom 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 of Uchiha Gen's punches. Thud! Killer Bee was sent flying like a sandbag, spraying blood everywhere, crashing into a small hill, burying him beneath it. PFFT, he collapsed onto the ground, his eyes glazed over, only then realizing that he had been sent flying by Uchiha Gen's punches. "BB, use that," deep within his mind, Jayuki's voice echoed, accompanied by another surge of tailed beast chakra. Killer Bee's glazed pupils finally focused again. Huff! Killer Bee let out a long breath, and the crimson-tailed beast chakra on his body began to spread and expand rapidly, an inexplicably oppressive aura spreading outwards from him. Whoosh! The small mountain tilted outwards, a shockwave rippled outwards, An octopus tentacle suddenly emerged from the mountain, a gigantic bull-headed octopus charging out. Bastard! Idiot! Stupid! The eight tails cursed, its 8 octopus tails surging towards Uchiha Gen, gagging a few times, and suddenly spitting out small-tailed beast balls at Uchiha General. There were still many Cloud Village ninja around, but Killer Bee couldn't care less. If he lost to Uchiha Gen, these people would die anyway. Everyone, run away, Uchiha Gen shouted, his brows furrowed, blood tears streaming from his eyes as his ocular power surged, further enhancing the power of his Susanoo. Boom! The black chakra surrounding his feet suddenly erupted with countless streams of chakra, propelling Uchiha Gen into the sky like a cannonball. Instantly, the Susanoo, which was originally only a little over 2 meters tall, expanded to more than 10 meters. Dazzling chakra flames erupted from the 6 Susanoo arms, each arm condensing a black tomo. Ultimate technique, Prince's Battle Technique Pro. The 6 Susanoo arms continuously hurled the Yasuka tomo at the surging tailed beast balls. Boom! An extremely dazzling white light flashed, the sound of wind and thunder arose, and a huge mushroom cloud slowly rose. Amidst a billowing dust, 2 colossal figures, having exchanged energy blasts, engaged in hand-to-hand combat. Low-lying mountains were leveled, rivers were diverted, and boundless forests were riddled with holes. Until, Susanoo's 2 arms gripped the face of the 8 tails, Gyuki, preventing it from unleashing its tailed beast balls. Uchiha Gen, piloting Susanoo, stood proudly, smiling contemptuously at Gyuki. Susanoo's other 4 arms immediately joined in pairs, forming hand seals. Susanoo could also be used as a ninjutsu amplifier. Wind release, vacuum ball. Fire release, great fire annihilation. Explosive gale bullet of annihilation, with a soft sigh from Uchiha Gen, Susanoo's head and mouth opened wider and wider, blazing flames constantly gathering and condensing within, growing ever more intense under the surrounding gale. Killer Bee, inside the 8 tails, suddenly felt a chill run down his spine, a coldness seeping into his very bones. Whoosh! A hurricane of flames erupted from Susanoo's mouth, transforming into a raging torrent of fire that completely engulfed the dozens of meters tall 8 tails. A massive pillar of fire shot into the sky, turning the heavens a purplish red. Fire! 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 Countless flames flowed silently. The 8 tails initially writhed, but its flesh quickly rotted and its body charred under the relentless flames. Finally, amidst the surging flames like a tsunami, the 8 tails howled, retracted its numerous tentacles, and burrowed back into Killer Bee's body. On the scorching lava ground, only Killer Bee, struggling to maintain his tailed beast mantle, remained, panting heavily. Uchiha Gen threw several more Yasuka Magatama at Killer Bee, forcing him to jump around, even shattering his sunglasses. Seeing that Killer Bee was powerless to resist, Uchiha Gen shrunk Susanoo, and the 6 arms behind him transformed into wings, allowing him to float in midair, looking down at Killer Bee from above. Killer Bee of Kumagakure, it seems your glory ends here. As a mortal, you've done quite well. If you have anything to hate, hate your fate of not having the Sharingan. Without the 6 paths bloodline, the upper limit of a ninja is probably only at Killer Bee's level. It's over, Uchiha Gen sighed leisurely, then suddenly swooped down towards Killer Bee below. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all, see you in the next video.